Chapter 2566. Ever since the cold porridge incident in the kitchen, the Crown Prince ordered the opening of a small kitchen in the Eastern Palace. He even personally allocated a sum of money to be used to buy fresh ingredients every day. In addition, he also selected a group of extremely skilled cooks to serve the little Crown Princess. In the past, because the Eastern Palace did not have a master, this small kitchen existed in name only. Now this small kitchen was bustling with activity. The Crown Princess was a child who was used to eating 3 meals a day. Every day, she would stir-fry, boil soup, and make desserts. These were all necessary. Today's breakfast consisted of 12 desserts, 4 types of porridge, and 2 types of noodles. How could the little Crown Princess eat so much? The rest was taken out by Kai Xiao and the rest. Ever since the little Crown Princess returned, Kai Xiao and the rest felt that their waists had also become much rounder. After eating, Emolian still had not returned. The little fellow was a little bored. She took out a book and nestled in an ivory armchair covered with a long velvet blanket. She casually flipped through page by page. When Emolian returned, he saw the little fellow curled up and sitting by the window. "Aren't you cold?" Sitting there and enjoying the breeze. Emolian walked up and carried his little wife up. He looked at her with a smile. "Did you miss me, Jojo?" "No." Sir Jojo reached out to push his handsome face away and muttered, "We just met this morning." This man's behavior was vile. He woke her up early and even kissed her awake. He insisted on telling her that Jojo was good morning before he was willing to leave thinking of this. Sir Jojo could not help but roll his eyes. Emolian chuckled and reached out to poke her little face. "You heartless little thing. I've always missed you." Emolian set her down and sized up her attire today. She had donned a set of embroidered battle clothes again. Emolian secretly laughed in his heart. Every time the little fellow put on the battle suit, it meant that she was ready to fight. Usually, she was used to wearing plain clothes, so it was easy to distinguish her mood. Jojo didn't know that the man had seen through her. She raised her head and asked, "Are we going now?" Emolian lowered his head and rubbed the tip of her nose. "Do you want to leave him out for another 2 days? Hehe, this is the son of the great emperor. Yesterday Prince Kang's mansion invited us over for a gathering. Both the host and the guest enjoyed themselves. When your father heard the news, he definitely couldn't sit still." Sir Jojo pursed his lips. Your father must be thinking that when the little brat came back, I, as his father, didn't even have the time to take a look at him. You, as his uncle, took a look at him first. Although the little fellow was too lazy to say anything else, Emolian had already understood what she meant. He smiled and pinched her cheeks. "You mischievous girl. Let's go." So, holding the little fellow's hand, he walked out of the Eastern Palace and boarded the carriage that had already stopped by the roadside. The carriage followed the spacious palace path and slowly made its way to the extreme palace of the great emperor. In another wing of the imperial study, Emolian's handsome face was slightly pale. He exerted force on his wrist and crushed several brushes with a crack sound. Hu Dequan, who was accompanying him and serving the brush and ink, had small beads of sweat on his forehead. He could only secretly pray in his heart, "Hurry up and come, hurry up and come." 2 little ancestors. The journey from the Eastern Palace to the Extreme Palace is only a short while. Why are they still nowhere to be seen? Just as Eunuch, who was feeling uneasy and uncertain, he heard a young eunuch's voice from outside. "Reporting to your majesty, the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess have arrived." Chapter 2567. Hu Dequan heaved a long sigh of relief. The 2 ancestors had finally arrived. Hu Dequan hurriedly smiled as brilliantly as a flower, jogging to the front of the great emperor. "Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and Crown Princess have arrived?" "Humph." Emolian snorted coldly, throwing the tattered pen in his hand to the ground. Turning around, he lifted the corner of his robe and sat down on a rosewood-carved throne. "Let them scram in." Hu Dequan's mouth twitched, hurriedly opening the door and shouting, "Summon the Crown Prince and Crown Princess for an audience." So many problems. The young couple ridiculed in their hearts at the same time. Hand in hand, they both stepped through the door and into the great emperor's study. Behind the 2, Hu Dequan's eyes clearly twitched. He kept feeling that this scene wasn't quite right, but he didn't know what was wrong. The crown prince and crown princess were both dressed in fiery red today. They were really a handsome man and a beautiful woman, very compatible. Alright, the two actually walked in hand, directly walking in front of the great emperor. Like two pieces of wood, they stood there without moving. Hu Dequan lifted his sleeve to wipe his sweat. He kept feeling that the great emperor would flip out next. Unexpectedly, he still couldn't guess the great emperor's thoughts. The great emperor silently looked at the young couple in front of him, actually not saying anything for a long time. In fact, Mo Lushing looked at the pair in front of him. To say that he didn't feel emotional would be a lie. His son looked very similar to Wuxia he had long known. Especially that pair of phoenix eyes. It was simply carved out from the same mold as Wuxia. That year, he also held his Wuxia in such high spirits and insufferably arrogant. To see his imperial father. With a serious face, he told his imperial father, "In this life, I will only marry Wuxia alone." Looking at the young couple in front of him, Mo Lushing actually became somewhat absent-minded, thinking of Wuxia lying in that cold place. His heart, as if a blunt knife was cutting his flesh, the pain was tight. Jojo poked Mo Lian's waist discreetly. "Why does your father keep looking at us like that?" "Who knows?" Mo Lian looked unhappy. She called him over, but he didn't say anything. "I don't know what he wants." "Then let's go." Jojo looked up at the man with a questioning expression. Hu Dequan, who was at the side, almost knelt down in front of these two. "Can the two of you not be so overboard when you're whispering to each other?" Also, who wouldn't immediately pay their respects to the great emperor when they saw him? This strange couple strolled to the Polaris Palace, as if they were strolling in their own backyard. They secretly communicated with each other in front of the great emperor, and even privately discussed their plans to leave. Hu Dequan felt that the great emperor was quite pitiful to have such a strange son and daughter-in-law. When Mo Lushing came back to his senses, he heard Jojo say, "Then let's go." What made him angry was that his brat even hurriedly nodded, looking very much in agreement. Holding the little girl's hand, he turned around and was about to leave. "Stop right there," Mo Lushing shouted, unable to vent his anger. Mo Lian and Arbor turned their heads at the same time. Two pairs of eyes simultaneously looked at the great emperor, who was standing in front of the desk with a gloomy face. "If you have something to say it. What are you shouting for?" Hu Dequan. The great emperor couldn't help but be angered by these two. The way they spoke and acted was quite humorous. They even spoke in unison, hee. "What did you call us over for?" Chapter 2568. Mo Lian was displeased as he sized up the great emperor from head to toe, harumphing coldly in his heart. Mo Lian didn't know how to feel about this biological father, who threw her on Seikong planet, to fend for herself since she was young. Hate. That wasn't necessary. Dislike. It seemed a little. In any case, she didn't like him that much. Moreover, father and son hadn't lived together for more than 10 years, so the feelings between them were very distant. Mo Lian couldn't remember what it was like before she was 3 years old at all. She heard the elders say how much her father loved her. Something about conferring her the title of crown prince the moment she was born, and telling everyone in the world about it. Something about holding her in the imperial study to review memorials. It felt like she was listening to some heavenly book. She didn't feel anything. In any case, for as long as she could remember, she had stayed on Seikong planet. She only felt the old great King Mo Lei's fatherly love, Empress Zhao's motherly love, and Empress Dowager Meng's kindness to her. As for this person in front of her, Mo Lian curled her lips and coldly swept her gaze over the emperor of the divine continent. Mo Lushing saw his son's unfamiliar and distant gaze, and couldn't help but feel a little upset. He thought about how he promised Wuxia to take good care of his son, but in the end, it seemed like he really didn't take good care of him. A trace of guilt floated in Mo Lushing's heart, and his tense face eased a little. He looked at his son and said, "Little glutinous dumpling, are you still blaming father?" When Mo Lian heard the words little glutinous dumpling, she was instantly petrified. This strange name, was it calling this prince? How could this crown prince have such a funny name? Impossible, impossible, impossible. Arbor, what the hell? Who was Little Glutinous Dumpling? Little Glutinous Dumpling seemed to be her husband's nickname. Her husband actually had such a cute nickname. This was too cute. His Highness the Crown Prince, who tried his best to maintain his aloof image in front of his wife, coldly stared at the Emperor of the Divine Continent in front of him with a frosty expression. I'm not Little Glutinous Dumpling. Prince Emo was on the verge of a mental breakdown, but he didn't show it on his face. Emo Lushing ignored him and continued, Little Glutinous Dumpling is the name your mother gave you. Emo Lien. Arbor. Ha ha ha. Emo Lien suddenly turned his head and stared at his wife accusingly. Wife, you're mocking your husband. Xiao Xiao really wanted to laugh, but when she saw Emo Lien's aggrieved expression, she hastily swallowed the smile on her lips. All right, if you don't want to laugh then so be it. When you were born, you were so small and weak. Your mother was afraid that you wouldn't grow up, so she gave you a nickname. Actually, you weren't round at all at that time. You were like a little monkey, very ugly. Crown Prince was speechless. Arbor's mouth twitched. However, it turned out that Wuxia was worrying for nothing. This son of theirs was the child who had inherited the ancient Emo Lien's powerful bloodline in the entire Emo clan for thousands of years. Due to that small body, it was not enough to withstand the baptism of the ancient bloodline. Therefore, not long after the child was born, Emo Lushing gathered all the deity realm cultivators in the country to help him place several bloodline seals on the child's body. Emo Lien's handsome face was cold as he silently stared at Emo Lushing. What exactly do you want to say? Emo Lushing looked at him deeply. Back then, father had no choice but to send you to Seacombe Planet. Chapter 2569. Over a decade ago, that incident almost caused his wife to die. At that time, he searched for all kinds of methods and almost destroyed the world to repair and save her bit by bit. But she couldn't move at all and couldn't smile at all. She laid there and slept for over a decade. At that time, he had to save his wife and deal with the mess left behind by the rebel army. There were even many forces in the dark who were eyeing his only child, wanting to take advantage of the situation and rob him. The situation was very grim. After much consideration, he accepted the elder's suggestion and sent the child to Seacombe Planet's Emo clan branch for Emo Lei to adopt on his behalf. He didn't expect that he would raise the child for so many years. When the child grew up, he was no longer under his father's control. He couldn't summon him back no matter what. This time, it was Emo Lushing himself who persisted. In addition, the ancient Emo Lien's seal really couldn't hold him back anymore. When the seal was removed, this child's powerful aura would flow out, and it would definitely alarm the Heavenly Tao and not be tolerated by the Heavenly Tao. So this time, it was more or less forcing this child to scram back. The father and son hadn't interacted for so many years, so they fell into a state of speechlessness when they met. Emo Lushing suppressed a lot of things in his heart, but he didn't know where to start. Emo Lien also didn't know what to say to this father of his, who was related by blood. The two stared at each other for a while. Emo Lushing's gaze suddenly shifted to Arbor at the side. He pointed at Arbor and said, Her identity isn't suitable for you. When Emo Lien heard this, he was immediately unhappy. He held Arbor's little hand tightly and glanced at his father coldly. Whether it's suitable or not isn't up to you to decide. Emo Lushing couldn't help but be taken aback. A scene from a long time ago seemed to appear before his eyes. Back then, Wuxia's true identity hadn't surfaced, and she was also disdained by the elders and officials. What he said back then seemed to be similar to what this child was saying now. Emo Lushing looked at his son with a slightly complicated gaze, secretly complaining in his heart. Why are they so similar? In this lifetime, I will only have Jojo as my wife. Emo Lushing. Emo Lien didn't care about how complicated Emo Lushing's gaze was. He continued to speak. Don't think of using such despicable methods to break us apart. Let me tell you, if you dare, I will tear your most cherished divine land into pieces and make it disappear completely. Emo Lushing almost scolded out the words unfilial son. But seeing his son's stubborn appearance, he couldn't help but sigh heavily. Emo Lushing's face darkened as he gloomily stared at Jojo. What do you have to say? If you dare to break us apart, I will kill you. Emo Lusheng, Emo Lian. Hu Duquan kept wiping his sweat. At this time, he was so shocked that he sat on the ground paralyzed. He didn't even have time to wipe his sweat. He was simply too shocked. The little crown princess was too bold. Wasn't she afraid that the great emperor would slap her to death in anger? Emo Lusheng tightly pursed his lips and looked coldly at the little fellow. You're just a puny little third-level spirit master. And you're still hoping to kill me? Arbor immediately took off the aura-concealing talisman on her body. Her realm rose with a whoosh, rising all the way to the 10th level of Great Spirit Master before stopping. Emo Lusheng was a bit shocked as he looked her up and down. He was shocked that this little fellow could actually grow to become a Great Spirit Master at such a young age in a place like the Lower Star Domain. Chapter 2570. But his expression didn't change as he coldly glanced at Arbor. A great spiritual master is nothing. In our divine continent, people of your age can generally reach such a realm. Arbor snorted coldly and proudly raised her little chin. Nonsense. What great emperor? You're just a great king who's awesome. Emo Lusheng. Why did he have the desire to slap this stinky lass to death? Eunuch who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, finally got up with great difficulty. But when he heard this, he immediately fell back down. No, he couldn't. He felt that his heart had been stimulated too much today, and he couldn't get used to it. Why don't you find a 15-year-old 10th level great spiritual master for me to see? The little fellow's face was full of pride. Even if there is, it's only an extremely rare few. Don't deny it. You don't have any common sense, and you're still a great emperor. His words were filled with disdain. The great emperor was about to be angered to death by her. He fiercely glared at her and sneered. Little lass, it's not a good thing to be too arrogant. Even if your achievements are quite high now, it doesn't mean that in the next few decades, you'll be able to smoothly increase your realm. Let's take the 5 spirits reincarnation as an example. A little lass like you can't possibly go through the 5 spirits reincarnation. This also means that you'll always stop before the divine realm. Sorry, my divine sense has already entered the divine realm level. That's right. It's extremely difficult for a female cultivator to become a divine realm expert. The great emperor suddenly paused. What did you just say? Eunuch whose eyes twitched. Emo Lian glanced at the emperor without batting an eyelid, inwardly pitying this old geezer. Boasting in front of his Jojo, he deserved to be attacked. My divine sense has entered the divine realm level. Arbor impatiently repeated. As long as my cultivation goes up, I can enter the divine realm whenever I want. The great emperor of the divine continent stared blankly for a while before saying with a dark face, Nonsense. You're the one who's talking nonsense. Arbor glared at him impatiently. If it weren't for the fact that you're Emo Lian's father, I would have beaten you up. Eunuch who secretly sucked in a breath. The veins on the emperor's forehead bulged as he glared at Arbor. Impudent lass. Do you know who you're talking to? Arbor looked at him as if he was an idiot. Emperor. What should he do if he wanted to slap the little girl to death more and more? I am the emperor of the divine land. Watch your attitude. The great emperor couldn't take it anymore and roared. Arbor pursed his lips and tugged at Emo Lian's sleeve. Why are you yelling at my wife? If you have any problems, come at me. Eunuch who looked at the great emperor with sympathy. Why did he feel that his emperor was so pitiful? He didn't dote on his son, and his daughter-in-law was disrespectful. It felt like he was an adopted father. If you dare to do anything to my wife, don't blame me for being merciless. How do you want to be merciless? Emo Lusheng was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. If a single hair on my wife's head is harmed, I will destroy the entire divine land. He didn't care anyway. What did the good or bad of the divine land have to do with him? Emo Lusheng was so angry that he wanted to slap this brat to death. He kept talking about destroying the entire divine land. If word got out, who knew how much gossip it would attract? You're not allowed to say such disgraceful words in the future. Then you're not allowed to make things difficult for my wife. Emo Lian insisted, unwilling to give in. I was delayed by something today. It's going to be late. You guys go to sleep first and come back tomorrow. Chapter 2571. It's not that we want to make things difficult for you, Emo Lusheng said angrily. It's just that her identity isn't suitable for you at all. What's not suitable about it? Emolian also glared back coldly. Jojo is also a member of the 6 great patrician families. I don't believe you don't know. At yesterday's Plum Blossom banquet, the matter of the real and fake Mu Qiao had become so exaggerated. The news of the Mu family publicly chasing the fake out had already spread throughout the entire imperial capital. He didn't believe that the emperor didn't know at all. He had already investigated Jojo countless times. Emo Lushing said coldly. So what if she's a member of the Mu family of the Divine Province? Can she be mentioned in the same breath as a proper daughter of the Mu family? So what if she returns to the Mu family? People will still secretly say that she's a girl from the Mu family who had been stranded on Seikong planet for many years and was born as a village girl. I'll smash the mouth of whoever says it, Emolian said coldly. Do you think you can shut everyone's mouths? As long as there are no people with ulterior motives stirring up trouble, I believe there are rumors, but they won't spread to the streets. When Emolian said the words people with ulterior motives, he deliberately glanced at the emperor. Emo Lusheng was angered by this brat's glance. If it weren't for the fact that the person standing in front of him was the only son he had with his beloved woman, he really would have mercilessly slapped him to death. He was so stubborn. It was so tiring to talk. You must marry the Panga clan's princess Jing Linyao. She's the one who's truly worthy of you. Jing Linyao is brave and resourceful, and her cultivation is profound. Although the Panga clan is currently in a state of disunity, as long as Jing Linyao dares to unite them, with our divine province's support, there will definitely be great changes in the next few years. I'll tell you one more time. My wife will only be Jojo. Emolian glanced coldly at Emo Lusheng. That Jing Linyao, if you like her, marry her yourself. Unfilial son. Emo Lusheng was so angry that he jumped up. Your mother is still lying there, and you actually instigate your father to take a concubine? If your mother heard what you said, she would be angered to death. Emolian pursed her lips. You don't want to wrong your wife, but I don't want to wrong my wife. What? Only your wife is a wife, and my wife is not a wife. Eunuch who nodded in thought. The crown prince is right. Emo Lusheng was amused by his son's words. His face was dark and gloomy for a long time, looking at the little child who used to lie on his lap and call him daddy more than 10 years ago. Now able to confront him, he seemed to have an indescribable feeling in his heart. It was very complicated, very uncomfortable, and mixed with a faint sense of loneliness. After all, she had missed the most important period of her son's growth. She had missed a lot. Scram. Emo Lusheng waved his hand, suddenly not wanting to talk to these 2 damn children. Jojo, let's go. Emo Lien didn't have the slightest bit of reluctance. She directly pulled Jojo's small hand and turned to leave. Jojo suddenly turned his head and looked at Emo Lusheng, asking loudly, Hey, what do you want to admit me? Emo Lusheng's eyes flashed, and a plan suddenly came to his mind. That's right. Since he couldn't do it from his son, then he would do it from this little girl. Let her know the difficulties in retreat. It's not impossible for me to admit you. The Divine Province's emperor pretended to ponder. You have to pass my 3 tests. Chapter 2572. What kind of test? The little fellow nodded and asked in a friendly manner. It wasn't that she needed this old man's acknowledgement, but she didn't want to make things difficult for his Lotus. If it was just her, she wouldn't even consider whether this damn old man would acknowledge her or not. But for Lotus, she thought it would be better to use peaceful means before resorting to force. She would first satisfy this old man's conditions and accept his test. If after she passed, he still refused to acknowledge her, then don't blame her for being merciless. Emo Lien turned her head and looked deeply at her little fellow. She gripped her little hand tightly. Don't suffer because of me. Emo Lusheng wanted to slap these 2 to death again. No matter how he looked at them, they were an eyesore. What was going on? The first test is that you have to find 3 fire-spitting ducks today and tomorrow. You have to extract 3 drops of heart blood from the fire-spitting ducks in front of me. You also have to ensure that they continue to live. Oh. Arbor nodded his little head, then rummaged through Paradise Planet and pulled out 3 yellow-red ducks. Is this the type? The emperor was dumbfounded. Emolien's mouth twitched. Eunuch who was paralyzed on the ground, continued to maintain his elegant silence. I'll extract it for you right now. Sir Jojo stretched out a finger and waved it casually. He then grabbed the 3 fire-spitting ducks and brought them to the window. He threw them on the table and sprinkled a wisp of medicinal powder on them, causing them to fall down in a daze. Arbor smoothly extracted 3 drops of heart blood from the fire-spitting ducks. But the problem was that normal spirit beasts would probably die after extracting 3 drops of heart blood. Arbor still had to ensure that these 3 ducks lived. The fastest and easiest way was to feed them pills. The great emperor was flabbergasted as he watched Xiao Mu speedily feed the 3 fire-breathing ducks 7 to 8 pills, as well as a small bottle of an unknown liquid. After a while, the 3 lively fire-breathing ducks began to wander around the imperial study. The great emperor gritted his teeth and sneered. Haha, what a waste of pills! With so many pills, it was obvious that they weren't of low quality. Yet, she was only using them to feed 3 low-level spirit beasts. How could she do such a thing? What's the second test? The second test is to find a bloodshed vermilion fruit within 3 days. Emolien was stunned, and then a trace of displeasure flashed across her face. Aren't you deliberately making things difficult for people? The bloodshed vermilion fruit is a saint-grade spirit fruit. Where can we find it in 3 days? Isn't it just to make things difficult for you? The great emperor secretly snorted. If it wasn't difficult, why would he take it out for a test? Arbor calmly took out a small, translucent red fruit from his inner world. When this thing appeared in front of the father and son, let alone Emolution, even Emolien was a little stunned. This bloodshed vermilion fruit was something he had conveniently obtained when he saved young Master Zhu in Shuntian Prefecture. Now it was flourishing on Paradise Planet. A small bloodshed vermilion fruit, so he gave it away. The great emperor was really stunned this time. Is this really a bloodshed vermilion fruit? Emolution reached out with trembling hands to take the vermilion fruit from the little girl. Unable to contain his joy, he took out a jade box and put it away. When he raised his head, he stared at Jojo with a somewhat complicated expression. This girl was simply a bit magical. Is she really just an ordinary daughter of the Mu family who had wandered outside? Chapter 2573. Emolution looked at the little girl in front of him with a complicated expression. He kept a straight face and his body was stiff, almost not knowing what to say. What could he say? The little girl had effortlessly solved his test questions twice in a row. This caused him to be shocked, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. This little girl was really quite strong. What's the third question? The little girl asked curiously. Emolution said with a sour face. Let's leave it like this for now. This third question, wait until Jin thinks of it. He already didn't dare to casually come up with a question, and let this little guy give him a slap in the face within minutes. He had an inexplicable feeling of wanting to cry. He felt like his dignity as a father was about to be destroyed without a trace. Infuriating. Emolution felt that the little girl was quite strange. He wouldn't admit that he was a little scared. He snorted with a cold face. Enough, all of you scram. Then that means you admit Jojo? Who said I admit it? Hearing his son's words, Emolution couldn't help but glare back. Then continue the test. You can admit it after the test. Emolien wouldn't let this old man with a belly full of evil tricks go back and gather the smartest people to discuss a scam project for his wife. Emolution's eyes flashed. Don't mess around. Let's leave it like this for now. It's nothing. Test. Sir Jojo roared. Emolution, why were these 2 brats so hard to fool? What a headache. Alright then, admit it for now. Emolution thought of a compromise and said coldly. But don't be happy too early. This is only temporary. When I think of the third question, if you don't pass it, you have to leave my son of your own accord. Do you agree? On what basis? Emolution, slap this evildoer to death. If I don't pass the test, it's just you not admitting it. On what basis do you want me to leave Lotus? You're dreaming. It's impossible for me to leave my Lotus. The little fellow looked at Emolien warily. Then he shrank into Emolien's arms and arched his back. Emolien nodded, and quickly reached out to hug her. His wife was smart and mighty. She immediately found the loophole in the old man's words. Get lost. Then let's do it this way. Mo Lushing felt like he was about to explode from anger. He couldn't be bothered to say another word to this couple. Wait. Mo Lien calmly called out to Mo Lushing, who was waving his hand to chase them away. What else do you want? Mo Lushing really wanted to shake his wife awake and let her wake up to see how that soft and cute little bun had become so terrifying. Since you've temporarily acknowledged Jojo, then do something that father should do. The great emperor's eyes lit up. Imperial father? This was the first time this brat had called him imperial father since he came back. Did he already admit that he was his father? Huh. Bah. My thoughts have been led astray by this pair of weirdos. What was there to admit or not? He was that brat's father. There was no need to doubt this blood connection. Do what? The great emperor asked with a solemn face. The moment he said that, he almost bit his own tongue. Write an imperial edict. And let eunuch who read it out. We must let everyone in the imperial capital know. The great emperor angrily glared at this damn son who was taking advantage of him. Chapter 2574. By His Majesty's decree, the Mu family is ordered to bring the crown princess back to the Mu family in style within 5 days. Prove her identity and announce it to the world. If there is any disobedience, the entire family will be executed. Those who feign compliance, but secretly oppose, will be executed. The group of Mu family members who had come out to receive eunuch, whose decree, looked at each other in bewilderment. What happened? Where were they? How could such a strange decree descend on their heads? What did it mean that the crown princess must be brought back within 5 days? If she couldn't, the entire family would be executed? Wasn't this execution a little too exaggerated? Mu Jingfeng indifferently led everyone to kowtow and express their thanks before standing up and bowing to receive the decree. Mu Jingrui had a strange expression as he stepped forward to ask the imperial eunuch. Eunuch who, with a smile. This eunuch. May I know what His Majesty's decree means? Isn't it the literal meaning? Eunuch who swept his horsetail whisk and calmly said. You all have to work hard. 5 days is neither long nor short. Hurry and strive for it. Mu Jingrui's eyes twitched as he hastily asked. Then what if the young crown princess insists on not returning? Eunuch who immediately turned hostile and mercilessly waved his hand. Pitch-black figures appeared in the surroundings. Judging from their figures and auras, most of them were level 13 spiritual masters and above, and there were even 2 or 3 divine realm experts mixed in. Look carefully. These people will stay here to supervise you for 5 days. If you make any strange movements during this time, you will be in big trouble. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Don't think of such useless thoughts. After eunuch who finished nagging, he left with the group of people without looking back. The black-clothed people lurking around the rooftops also naturally concealed themselves. They were so silent that no one could do anything about it. Everyone immediately looked at Mu Jingfeng in a panic. Family head, what should we do about today's matter? Mu Jingfeng was also very puzzled. This imperial edict came out of the blue without any warning. Suddenly, such a strange imperial edict was issued, telling them to go and welcome the young crown prince consort back to the Mu family? Could it be that the great emperor wants to acknowledge the identity of the crown princess? Otherwise, why would it give people the feeling that the emperor was supporting the crown princess? Could it be an illusion? No one could answer their questions, so they could only leave resentfully. Mu Jingfeng's eyes darkened as he looked at the imperial edict in his hand. His heart felt heavy. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that a storm was coming. Xingchen, bring some people to the palace tomorrow, and invite the crown princess to come to our Mu family. Mu Jingfeng coldly said. When the time comes, I'll have someone open the ancestral hall and bring out the bloodline talisman to verify its authenticity. Mu Xingchen looked up in shock, and his gaze swept over his father indifferently. That's the crown prince consort. Not just anyone can meet her. The tone of her father's words was really laughable. He made it sound like a fish waiting to be slaughtered in the market, and any random person would be able to slaughter a piece of it. If you want to meet the crown princess, you have to see if she's willing to meet you. While the Mu family was in a mess, The Shi family was also in a state of chaos. Ever since Shi Yongqian was whipped 30 times by Arbor and carried back to the Shi family, the Shi family's eldest madam seemed to have gone crazy and kept clamoring to seek revenge on Arbor. If the Shi family's head hadn't slapped her so hard that she couldn't get up, she would have run away long ago. Chapter 2575. Madame Shi was already furious. Her second daughter, who was as beautiful as a flower, was actually beaten to such a state. How could she endure this? She couldn't tolerate this. So what if that person was the crown princess? How could she beat her precious daughter to such a state without asking for the reason? She had to reason with her. Slap! Patriarch Shi slapped Madame Shi. Are you sober now? How dare you go and make trouble? Go out and ask around. The Mu family is going to be in big trouble. How dare you provoke the crown princess? Master, I'm just worried about our daughter. So what if you're worried about her? She was the one who did not behave properly, so she was caught red-handed and given a good beating. If she was a good person, how could the crown prince consort not let go of her? What other reason could the crown princess have to whip her? Don't blame others for your own stupidity. Patriarch Shi waved his hand and said angrily, "That's enough. You're not allowed to go anywhere." After Madame Shi ran away crying, the eldest son of the Shi family frowned and said, "Father, is the matter with the Mu family true? Could it be that the emperor has acknowledged the crown princess, so he's anxious to prove the crown princess's identity, so that she can be a good match for His Highness the Crown Prince?" Patriarch Shi shook his head. It's not so easy to guess the emperor's thoughts. We don't need to care about anything and just wait and see. After a pause he said, "The emperor has been silent for many years. Many people have forgotten that he himself is a transcendent realm master. It's said that more than half of the purple forest guards of the 7 color guards are transcendent realm masters. This is a very strong open guard. The emperor probably has countless hidden guards in his hands. No one knows what realm they are in. If the Mu family really disobeys the decree, they will face the wrath of the emperor and be destroyed." The eldest son of the Shi family took a breath and nodded with a sorrowful expression. Although the Mu family's decree is strange, it's not without reason. Right now, the situation is hard to predict. The crown prince has yet to enter the court. His voice lowered. After His Highness the Crown Prince enters the court, I'm afraid the situation will become even more treacherous. We have to be careful at every step. I'll listen to you, father. The eldest son of the Shi family nodded. Let's see what the Mu family will do. Your sister and mother, those 2 idiots, can't do anything right. Keep an eye on them, and don't let them cause any trouble. Yes. At this moment the great emperor, who was sulking in his study, crushed a pen. He wasn't the young crown prince consort's protective umbrella. Those brainless fools. What kind of messy news have they spread? He couldn't wait for this little crown princess to get out of Dragonflame City as soon as possible, so that she wouldn't always bring trouble to herself. No, he had to gather all the strategists and discuss the 3rd project as soon as possible, so that the little crown princess wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Achoo! Sir Jojo reached out and rubbed his red little nose. He retracted his head from the window and wrapped his cloak tightly around himself. Crown Princess, a young master of the Mu family called Mu Xingqian, is outside Chengqian Gate, asking to see the Crown Princess. The little Crown Princess ignored him. She took out the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron from her inner world and began to study how to make pills. It wasn't until evening, when Emolien returned from the study, that Jojo finished refining the last batch of pills. He put away the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron and popped a pill into his mouth, chewing it like a candy. Emolien smiled and winked at her. The moon is beautiful tonight. Do you want to accompany your husband for a walk? 10 o'clock. Chapter 2576. Sir Jojo handed him a small box with a rectangular carving. Here, eat it. You can eat it every day, or every few days. I'll give it to you after you eat it. It tasted pretty good. The little fellow gave him such a look. Emolien couldn't help but laugh when he saw that. These black-level nourishing pills were indeed pretty good. Not only did they not have any side effects after long-term consumption, but they could also strengthen the meridians and strengthen the body. They were also effective for immortals' supremacies. Jojo's products were definitely of high quality. The little fellow took out another pill and threw it into his mouth, chewing. Then, he jumped into Emolien's arms and rubbed his chest. I'm not going out for 3 days. The Mu family will be worried sick. But since you're inviting me so warmly, I'll reluctantly accept. Pfft, Emolien laughed out loud. He reached out and lifted the little fellow up high, kissing him hard. My Jojo, is it really okay for you to be so proud? Okay, that's great. Sir Jojo nodded secretly. He wrapped his arms around his neck and rubbed his head against his shoulder. He called out softly, Lien. Emolien's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his head to look at her. Under the setting sun, the little person looked like a jade doll painted with a faint golden light. She was extremely adorable. Emolien simply couldn't bear to let go of her. Jojo, I'll take you to the Despondent Pavilion to watch a performance. Sir Jojo quite liked to watch performances that included music, singing and juggling. When he said that, his eyes lit up and he looked forward to it. Emolien carried her out of the door. Not long after they got into the carriage, they left Leshing Gate and headed towards Changle Street. Changle Street was bustling with activity at night. There were many pedestrians strolling along the street. Cars came and went. Rows upon rows of restaurants and restaurants lined the street. Everyone was bustling with noise and guests. From this, it could be seen that the livelihood of the people in Dragon Flame City was really good. The people all lived and worked in peace and contentment. They even had money to spare. The Despondent Pavilion was at the end of Changle North Street. It would take some time to get there. Emolien held the little fellow and chatted for a while, subconsciously teasing her to open her mouth. Towards the end of his teasing, the little thing spoke unhappily again. That expression of hers was as if she had finished speaking 800 years' worth of words. She even had an accusatory expression on her face. How amusing. I want to talk. Emolien continued to chat with her patiently and gently. Jojo, you're much better than before. When we were young, even if I spoke 10 sentences to you, you wouldn't even bother to respond to me. Arbor snorted. I talk a lot every day now. Imperial Ant had a great chat with me that day. Is that so? Emolien looked suspicious. With the little fellow's personality, who knew how Imperial Ant would be able to strike up a conversation with her, and even chat happily. Just thinking about it made it seem impossible. Sir Jojo raised his little chin proudly. Emolien was delighted at the sight. He took the little fellow and kissed her on the cheek. Jojo, your birthday is in 10 days. What do you want? Arbor looked up at him and said decisively, I want you. Emolien was stunned. Then he hugged the little fellow and couldn't help but chuckle softly. All right, I'll wrap myself up and give myself to Jojo on that day. Sir Jojo nodded in satisfaction and raised his hand to touch his chin. Very good. Emolien's smile overflowed from his gentle gaze. He lowered his head and kissed her gently on the lips. Jojo, I like you. Chapter 2577. The little fellow cupped her little chin with her hands and retreated to the window. She lay there, pretending to be calm as she looked out of the window. Io, my little sweetheart. Her heart almost jumped out of her chest just now. How could this man be so flirtatious? Emolien snuggled up to her and hugged her small waist with a grin. You're shy, Chow Chow. Pooh. The little fellow looked like she couldn't be bothered to talk. She leaned against the window and looked out at the night view. Her heart was filled with delight. She couldn't help it. With a handsome man holding her arm, she felt inexplicably happy. Jojo, if you don't talk to me, I'm going to bite you. Sir Jojo's little ears secretly heated up. He suddenly pointed to a slender alley beside them. What's that place? Emolien looked out with interest. The carriage happened to pass by a fork in the road. There was a small arched bridge with a high slope. Beyond that was a dark place filled with red lights. There was a sign above that said Amusement Alley. Emolien narrowed his eyes and hugged the little fellow's waist. He waved the curtain down and said expressionlessly, Stop looking. There's nothing to see. Oh, I know. Sir Jojo had a flash of inspiration. He pointed and said, That's a place like Spring House. Chow Chow actually still remembered Spring House. Emolien's beautiful phoenix eyes narrowed dangerously, and he lowered his head to look seriously at his wife. Xiao Qiao, do you still remember the red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple flowers of the spring pavilion? Jojo blinked her big eyes. What's a seven-colored flower? It was obvious that she didn't remember. It was only then that Emolien was secretly delighted, but his expression didn't change. Then why do you only remember spring-filled floor? I think those red lanterns look more like it. Jojo pointed outside the window through the curtain. Those with red lanterns are usually in red light districts. Emolien, what the hell was this? During festivals, every household would hang red lanterns in front of their doors. But forget it, the little fellow was right to think this way. The dim red lanterns were indeed the symbol of the red light district. But this time, the little fellow guessed wrong. That was no ordinary red light district. Entertainment Alley was the most famous jade tripod market in Dragon Flame City. The cauldrons here didn't refer to the cauldrons used to refine pills and weapons, but to female slaves who had been captured or sold. These female slaves were mostly Xiozha above the spirit realm. They were picked by some of the stronger male Xiao as tools to help them increase their cultivation. In their eyes, these female slaves could only be tools. Although she was a female cultivator, her life was even worse than that of the commoners at the bottom of Dragon Flame City. Although Emolien didn't like this kind of place, she wouldn't interfere in the management of this matter. After all, the jade tripod market had existed for more than 1,000 years. There were such markets everywhere in the 3 prefectures. It was not that he could get rid of this evil habit by being kind. Moreover, he had just returned to the divine land. Everything had to start anew. Before he grasped the situation, he wouldn't act rashly. There was no such thing as a Saint Father's heart. Although Emolien looked like a spring breeze on the outside. In fact, she was much colder than Jojo in the depths of her heart. After all, she had always been in a superior position. Her way of looking at people, and her way of thinking was always from the big picture. Why aren't you saying anything? Chapter 2578. Emolien came back to his senses, and saw that the little fellow had climbed onto his lap like a soft little animal. She was sitting in his arms, and looking at him with a puzzled expression. The man almost couldn't control himself, and pushed her down reflexively then. He hurriedly carried this little ancestor to the side, and calmed his agitated emotions. He coughed lightly and said, Jojo, don't crawl around. Arbor pursed its little lips, and resentfully retracted its little claws. With such an interruption, she had long forgotten the question she had asked him earlier. Emolien naturally wouldn't take the initiative to mention the jade tripod market, so this matter passed just like that. Not long after, they arrived at the despondent pavilion. The two alighted, and were welcomed in by 2 quick-witted page boys standing at the door. To enter the garden, one had to pay a fee of 100 spirit coins per person. The price wasn't low. If one wasn't from a wealthy family, one wouldn't come to such a place to spend money. The 2 of them came at the right time. The private room on the 2nd floor was the last one. The hall below was already filled with people. The performance was about to begin in 15 minutes. The despondent pavilion was a place where one could eat and play, so business was booming on weekdays. At night, it was even more packed every day. It was said that the pavilion master was very good at doing business. He was very good at taking advantage of the rich's tendency to compete and spend money recklessly. Every single performance was set up to compete for prizes. After the performance, a host immediately went up and shouted, How many spirit coins did this Master Wang spend? Master Zhao gave a deed to a side garden. There were too many of them to count. After the performance, the rich enjoyed watching and spending money to their heart's content. The pavilion master of the despondent pavilion also made a lot of money. The most important thing was that the pavilion master of the despondent pavilion's performance was full of tricks. If other people wanted to copy the pavilion master's ideas and set up a variety show pavilion of their own, it would be impossible. The main reason was that this pavilion master was too smart. After a while, he would launch a new round of programs and lead a new trend in Dragon Flame City. Even if the group of people below wanted to copy, it was useless. They had just copied someone else's old tricks, and someone else's new tricks would immediately follow. The endless new tricks were too much for the eyes to take in. The rich people all liked to run to Despondent Pavilion. As for the rest of the small fries, even if they went to other pavilions, they would not lose much. Mr. Jojo reached out to take an exquisite menu and flipped through it. He looked curiously at the waiter, who was wearing a red festive outfit. "Your menu is quite interesting." In other restaurants, a few words were written on a wooden board and hung on the wall for customers to order. There were also some small shops that didn't even have any brands at all. Whatever customers wanted to eat was completely up to the waiter. His family was different. Not only did they make an exquisite menu that was as thin as a book, but the prices of the various dishes were also clearly marked. For example, a plate of potato powder cost 50 spirit coins. It was indeed expensive, but it was Jojo's first time seeing such a way of ordering food. The waiter said proudly, "Of course. Our menu is the only one in the entire Dragon Flame City." The pride in his tone was fully revealed. Arbor glanced at the waiter and reached out to order a few dishes. He flipped through the page and ordered a few more. The waiter hurriedly said, "Sir, I'm afraid the two of you won't be able to finish so many dishes." Arbor ignored him and ordered a lot of dishes. Then, he closed the menu and said to the waiter, "That's all. Go and prepare." Chapter 2579. They really were two strange people. The two of them actually ordered a table full of dishes. None of them were cheap. The waiter inwardly muttered as he left the door. When he opened the door, two women passed by, seemingly inadvertently glancing at him. Bang! The door that the waiter had just closed was suddenly kicked open by someone. Arbor's hand that was holding the teacup paused slightly. He turned his head and saw two people standing at the door. One was Mu Ro Yin, concubine Shi's youngest daughter. He had just met her at General Zhong Li's estate. Arbor didn't recognize the other person. However, when he saw her slightly raised chin with an expression that said she was number one in the world, a faint trace of displeasure surfaced in his heart. That's right. How could someone who could walk together with Mu Ro Yin be a good person? Why are you here? Mu Ro Yin glared fiercely at Arbor as she questioned him angrily. If it wasn't for this vicious and merciless woman in front of her, how could she have been beaten to the point of vomiting blood? And how could concubine Shi have been punished by father and shut herself in Wulong Garden for 5 days to reflect on her mistakes? It was all this slut's fault for using her status to bully others everywhere. Get out of Dejected Pavilion immediately. How dare you? Eunuch Chun, who was quietly waiting by his master's side and silently serving tea, couldn't bear it any longer and angrily shouted. From the moment this woman kicked the door open, only her rude voice could be heard. If he didn't stop her now, when would he? Mo Lian's eyes also carried a trace of anger as she coldly glanced at Mu Ro Yin. Jojo didn't say anything, so Mo Lian also didn't say anything. Eunuch Chun had already walked forward and reached out to stop Mu Ro Yin, who was about to rush over. "Which family are you from? How can you be so rude?" "Ro Yin. She's that self-righteous crown princess who has never been acknowledged by the emperor. She thinks she's omnipotent." The 3 words crown princess came out of the mouth of this arrogant girl. She especially emphasized her tone, appearing especially sarcastic. "Impudent!" Eunuch Chun angrily shouted. He was truly angered. He didn't even need to turn his head to know that the crown prince was furious. He immediately felt a layer of cold sweat on his back. These 2 ignorant women actually dared to barge into the crown prince and crown princess' private room without permission. They were simply courting death. "Dog slave, back off." A trace of anger flashed in Su Shitao's eyes. "A servant dares to yell in front of me? Who gave you the courage?" Eunuch Chun was so angry that he laughed. "And who are you?" "This is Princess Tao, King Zheng's younger sister." Mu Royan looked at the little crown princess with a smug expression. The viciousness in her eyes could not be concealed. Mo Lian's eyes narrowed dangerously. Since when did King Zheng have a younger sister? Prince Mo Lian was an orphan when he was young. By chance, he was adopted by Mo Lian's mother. That was how he became the adopted son of the great emperor. Didn't they say that King Zheng had no relatives and was all alone? Who was this little sister that appeared out of nowhere? Moreover, Princess Tao. Emolian sneered. Who conferred you the title of princess? Su Shitao looked over when she heard the voice. When she saw the man sitting there, her face involuntarily reddened. However, she still raised her chin and said with an extremely arrogant expression, "This is how everyone respectfully addresses me. They all like to call me princess." Moreover, her elder brother was King Zheng, a dignified prince and the adopted son of the great emperor. In terms of seniority, she naturally deserved the title of princess. Chapter 2580. Uft. Eunuch Chen couldn't help but laugh out loud. Where did this girl come from? She had never seen the world before. She actually proclaimed herself as a regional princess? Didn't she know that regional princesses had ranks? That was a title conferred by the imperial court and a salary. In addition, some regional princesses might even be bestowed with land. He had never seen someone like this girl, who was so boastful and hilarious. He didn't know where she got the face to actually think that there was nothing wrong with others calling her a regional princess. When Su Shitao saw Eunuch Chen's attitude, her eyes immediately turned red from anger. She swung a slap at Eunuch Chen's face. "You unruly servant, how dare you look down on me?" Ever since she followed her parents to the capital to search for her relatives, and found her elder brother, Mo Shikong, she had a few good months. She was flattered by a group of noble ladies around her to the point that she almost forgot her own surname. Her personality was bossy and domineering, and she would hit whenever she wanted to. How could she care about who Eunuch Chen was? How could Eunuch Chen be hit by this woman? Seeing her slap, he hurriedly reached out to block it, using his arm to separate her demonic claws. Su Shitao was pushed back a few steps by Eunuch Chen. She glared at him. "You unruly servant, how dare you retaliate? Throw them out," Mo Lian said impatiently. Eunuch Chen hurriedly took 2 steps forward and lifted Su Shitao and Mu Royan up like chickens. He directly threw them out of the door and closed it with a bang. Mu Royan and Su Shitao both fell to the ground and stood up with ashen faces. Su Shitao said angrily, "Who is that man?" He was actually so heartless that he directly ordered his servant to throw these 2 delicate young ladies out of the door? Don't say that Mu Royan's brain was really lacking. Even now, she still didn't understand why the attack talismans she used to attack Arbor ended up injuring herself. Now, it was even more impossible for her to associate the man in the private room with His Highness the Crown Prince. How would I know? Mu Royan stomped her feet. "Regional Princess Tao, you also saw it. That woman is arrogant and rude by nature. She doesn't even respect you." Su Shitao's face darkened. "I will definitely tell Big Brother about this. Her brother, Mo Shikong, loved her the most. He would definitely seek justice for her." Hearing this, Mu Royan couldn't help but roll her eyes. "Don't tell me you're going to leave with your tail between your legs." While they were talking, an old man walked over and bowed to them. He asked in confusion, "Sixth Miss Princess Tao, why are you 2 standing here?" "Steward he." Mu Royan's eyes lit up when she saw the old man. "Sir, the dishes are here." The waiter opened the door and served all kinds of dishes. That manager he, along with Mu Royan and Su Shitao, forcibly pushed aside several waiters who were serving the dishes. With a cold expression, he looked at Arbor and Mo Lian and said, "Guests, you cannot continue to eat at our frustrated pavilion." Mu Royan smugly curled her lips. When she thought that she would be able to see Arbor, this damn woman, being chased out of frustrated pavilion with her tail between her legs, she couldn't help but feel smug. Arbor slightly raised her head and saw Mu Royan's smug expression. Her heart stirred and she asked, "This frustrated pavilion is your Mu family's property?" Steward he nodded with a dark expression. Chapter 2581. Slap. Mo Lian slapped her chopsticks heavily on the table as she coldly gazed at that manager he. "You're quite arrogant." His lips curled into a mocking smile as he sneered. Steward he followed suit and cupped his hands, looking as if he was ready to risk everything. "Guests please." Interesting. Even Eunuch Chen couldn't help but be amused. These people truly weren't afraid of death. They were so eager to provoke His Highness the Crown Prince. Arbor couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people, and picked up her chopsticks to eat. The dishes tasted alright, but there was still a gap between them and her small kitchen. They didn't look very tasty, but the price was several times higher than that of ordinary restaurants and shops outside. Most likely, this was the price set by the rich. In the eyes of those foolish rich people who had too much money, the higher the price, the better the food. Who would have thought that the taste was just so? Arbor was greatly disappointed and directly threw her chopsticks down, not eating anymore. She had only touched a few chopsticks with this table full of dishes. Her large eyes flickered as she beckoned to the waiter brother standing next to her. Come, put it in a box. It wouldn't be good to waste so much food. She heard that many refugees had been arranged in the Huanlang area in the western part of the city recently, so she'd just have someone send the food over. For some reason, the waiter brothers immediately obeyed and moved. Their behavior made Manager He glare at them in dissatisfaction. Who exactly was the master and who was the servant? He already said to chase these two people out, but no one dared to move. Now that they heard the little stoic's order, they immediately went to do it. It was simply infuriating. On the other hand, Arbor was very satisfied with these waiters' deft movements. She nodded and said to them, "Get a box and pad it with 2 pieces of cotton cloth. Don't let it get cold." Yes. The waiter busily found another box of cotton cloth, and so on, and wrapped the food properly. It was only then that Arbor said to the air behind her, "Huifeng. Hey, Crown Princess, tell me, what orders do you have?" Huifeng giggled and flashed to their side. "Send this food to Huanlang district in the west of the city, and distribute it to the old, weak, women and children." Steward, he was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. Could it be that no one would listen to a living person like him standing here? "What are you doing? Do you all want to rebel?" "Steward," he shouted angrily at those workers with red eyebrows and green eyes. "If you don't want to work here, then scram. You didn't listen to me. But you followed 2 outsiders and worked blindly. Everyone stop." The employees looked at each other, and for a moment, they were all silent out of fear. They really didn't want to offend the 2 noble guests. With just one look, they could tell that these 2 people weren't people that ordinary workers like them could afford to offend. They went out to work because they wanted to earn more money. They didn't want to lose their lives. "Shut up." The little crown princess suddenly flared up. She slapped the table and reprimanded harshly. "You're like a housefly making noise. Slap your mouth." Eunuch Chen was already fuming. When he heard the crown princess's order, he rolled up his sleeves without another word and slapped Manager He's face. A lousy little manager dares to shout so casually in front of the crown prince and the crown princess. You simply don't want your life anymore. Mu Royun, who was originally immensely pleased with herself, was instantly stunned. The crown prince. Chapter 2582. Her short-circuited brain seemed to have just been reconnected. She stared blankly at Mo Lien, who was sitting at the table with a cold expression. How was this possible? His Highness the Crown Prince had such a high status. How could he accompany that little bitch to Despondent Pavilion to listen to music and watch performances? What did this woman do to deserve His Highness the Crown Prince's favor, and even accompany her on a night tour? From what everyone said, wasn't she just a village woman from a mountain village? His Highness the Crown Prince occasionally brought her back to the divine prefecture out of kindness. When His Highness the Crown Prince saw the noble ladies of the divine prefecture, he would broaden his horizons and clearly understand the difference between that little bitch and the noble ladies of the divine prefecture. Sooner or later, wouldn't His Highness the Crown Prince kick this little bitch away? Mu Royan didn't know why, but her palms were sweating. She was only 14 years old. Although she was usually arrogant, she didn't have much ability. At a young age, she naturally didn't consider things thoroughly. Now that she encountered this situation, she could only stand there in a daze. Her mind instantly went blank, and she didn't know how to react. On the side, Su Shitao was also stunned, and he sized up Crown Prince Mo in disbelief. What? This was His Highness the Crown Prince of the Divine Prefecture, who had just entered the imperial capital? Arbor was amused by this woman's gaze. In her opinion, She would rather deal with a smart person like Jing Linyao than talk nonsense with this idiot in front of her. Have you seen enough? Miss Chiao wasn't happy that her man was being sized up by others. She coldly said, "Come, tie her up and send her back to Prince Zheng's estate." Tong's figure immediately appeared in front of Su Shitao. He didn't say anything and directly restrained her. Let go of me, you bastard. How dare you treat me like this? My big brother won't let you off." Su Shitao stared coldly at Arbor and shouted harshly, "Stay your hand." Suddenly, a calm voice interrupted the clamorous noise in the room. "Tao, how can you be so rude in front of His Highness the Crown Prince?" He was wearing a royal blue robe. His black hair was neatly combed and tied under an ink-colored crown. Mo Shikong walked in quickly and glared at his sister, Su Shitao, unhappily. Mo Shikong was about 27 or 28 years old. He looked like a very refined and gentle man. His appearance was not as outstanding as the Mo family. However, in front of the Crown Prince, who had a magnificent bearing and unparalleled handsomeness, Mo Shikong's elegant appearance and outstanding temperament did not pale in comparison. "Tao, why aren't you apologizing to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess?" Mo Shikong glanced at Su Shitao. Behind her was Mo Shikong's wife, Princess Consort Zheng, Shi Yongyan. The moment she entered the room, she saw the little Crown Princess's deep, dark eyes. She couldn't help but feel nervous. Ever since the drama at General Zhong Li's residence, Shi Yongyan felt that the little Crown Princess was like a tigress that would explode at any moment. It was best not to provoke them if possible. Shi Yongyan's personality was much smoother than her arrogant second sister, who didn't know etiquette. The moment she entered the room, she smiled and bowed. "Greetings to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Arbor returned half a bow and called faintly, "Sister-in-law." No matter what, as long as Prince Zheng was the great emperor's adopted son, he couldn't escape the title of adopted brother and sister-in-law in name. Arbor also knew how to put on an act. Wasn't it just pretending to be harmonious? Chapter 2583. Tower. Mo Shikong's tone sank slightly. Su Shitao stomped her feet and unwillingly bowed. She said to Mo Lian and Arbor, "Tower was immature and offended the two of you. Please forgive me." The situation was stronger than the person. She was only temporarily bowing her head. She wasn't trying to save face for the Crown Princess from the countryside. Su Shitao pursed her lips and barely suppressed the disdain in her eyes. Who knew how long the Crown Princess could remain? Sooner or later, His Majesty would find a way to replace her. To be honest, the many noble families in the capital all adopted a wait-and-see attitude. They didn't think highly of the young Crown Princess. Arbor coldly swept a glance at Mo Shikong. "King Zheng's apology is enough to let go of your sister's crime of disobeying this Crown Princess?" King Zheng, Mo Shikong was slightly taken aback. Only then did he focus on sizing up the young Crown Princess. With such exquisite features and a cold and noble aura, was it really as the rumors said, that the Crown Prince Consort was just a young woman from a mountain village? Mo Shikong naturally wouldn't argue with Arbor. He only smiled and cupped his hands at Mo Lian. "His Highness the Crown Prince has only returned to the capital a few days ago, so I didn't dare to disturb him. I originally wanted to pay a visit tomorrow, but I didn't expect that things would be so coincidental that we would meet in the despondent pavilion. It's also because I didn't manage my sister properly that she became so arrogant and offended the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. I will apologize to the two of you on her behalf. I hope that the two of you will forgive her this time on account of her young age." Mo Shikong generously admitted his mistake and said with a smile, "When I return, I will definitely teach this child a lesson." Child? How old was she? She would never grow up. Arbor rolled her eyes. She felt that Mo Shikong was too gentle and not decisive enough. She disliked this temperament of his. It was no wonder that he taught his sister to be like this. Arbor only knew part of the story. In fact, Mo Shikong was wronged when it came to educating his sister. He had only met his biological parents 3 months ago. How could he talk about educating his sister? They had been separated for more than 20 years. However, it was true that he was indecisive and kind. He was a filial man. Seeing his biological parents living such a miserable life, He couldn't bear it. Taking them in seemed to be a matter of course. Mo Shikong saw that the little crown princess was unhappy, so he cupped his hands and said, "Please forgive me, sister-in-law." Since she had already said that, it would be unreasonable if she still did not forgive Mo Shikong's sister. Mo Lien turned to look at his little wife. He didn't care. If his little wife wanted to punish this arrogant Su Shitao, he would let her be. Of course, Jojo wouldn't make things difficult for him. After all, this was the first time he had met his sworn brother. He would give him face if he had to. However, Prince Zheng, is your sister's family living in your Prince Zheng's residence now? The little fellow asked with a stoic face. Yes. Then you really have to control them well. You can't go out and say that Prince Zheng's residence is undignified. After all, that family is living in your residence now. They represent the face of Prince Zheng's residence. These words struck a chord in Shi Yongyan's heart. She hadn't had a good time in the past few months. Ever since that family came, things hadn't stopped. Chapter 2584. Princess Consort Zheng was also very vexed by this strange family. There were some things that she didn't dare say as a daughter-in-law, but now that she heard the little crown princess say it, she was truly in a good mood. King Zheng also looked a bit embarrassed at the little crown princess's words. Su Shitao had always been arrogant and couldn't stand these words. He immediately screamed in anger. "What did you say, you bitch? Slap him." A cold light flashed through the little crown princess's eyes as she gave the order. Eunuch Chen didn't say another word and rushed up to slap Su Shitao. Mo Shikong started and hurriedly grabbed Eunuch Chen's hand, saying awkwardly, "Sister-in-law, please don't be angry." Eunuch Chen's heart sank. His cultivation was around the 7th level of the spirit realm, but Mo Shikong's seemingly easy grab didn't allow him to exert any strength at all. It could be seen that King Zheng was indeed as the rumors said. He was a spirit realm genius who could control the 9th level of the spirit fire. "King Zheng, are you looking down on me, the crown princess, by protecting me at every turn?" Arbor said coldly. "No wonder your sister treats me so disrespectfully. So it's because of her family's teachings. Bitch, who would respect a bitch from the lower star domain?" A slap. Mo Shikong turned around and slapped his stupid sister. "Shut her mouth and drag her out." He was almost breaking out in a cold sweat. This little crown princess was truly ruthless. She'd purposely let Su Shitao to curse out loud, so that he could punish his stupid sister. Otherwise, if the crown princess did it, Su Shitao would be offended even more. "Crown princess, are you satisfied now?" Mo Shikong was also a bit angry. He hadn't wanted to go against the crown princess. He'd been adopted by the empress since he was young, and deeply respected this adoptive mother. He naturally had to love and care for the empress's biological son, Mo Lien, as if he were his own younger brother. But today's matter, the way he saw it, the little crown princess was really a little immature. He had always been tolerant, but she was always picking on him. With such a crown princess around, how could the crown prince not worry about the future? Now, he felt that his foster father's dissatisfaction with this crown princess was pardonable. "Brother King Zheng, it's not that I, the crown princess, am criticizing you. With such a family staying in your residence, something will happen to you sooner or later." Arbor sneered and said coldly, "Do you think you're doing this for their own good? But you don't know that they are relying on your power to do whatever they want. Today, your sister can chase us away without saying a word. Tomorrow, she will dare to kill us and rob us. You are Imperial Father's adopted son, and your name is also written into the Mo clan's genealogy. Your every word and action naturally represents the face of the royal family. Now that you've taken in such a pile of trash in your residence, and are going out to smear the reputation of the Zheng family, I really can't help but suspect that your intelligence is worrying." Eunuch Chen was speechless. If Hu Dequan were here, he would definitely curl his lips in disdain. This was nothing. The little crown princess even dared to rebuke the emperor, not to mention a mere King Zheng. How laughable. Mo Shikong's face was a bit red. He angrily glanced at the little crown princess. "Crown prince, isn't the crown princess words a bit too much?" The crown prince sneered. "Foster brother, do you know what my sister calls herself when she goes out? Princess Tao. I really didn't know that the title of princess could be self-proclaimed. This Princess Tao really opened my eyes. Chapter 2585. Mo Shikong's face heated up. It wasn't that he didn't know that his younger sister had been called Princess Tao by others. It was just that he didn't take it seriously when he saw that it was just a name that girls used in private. After being mocked by Mo Lien in such a mocking tone today, he instantly felt like he couldn't get out of the situation. Princess Tao, who was gagged by several servants, glared at Mo Lien and Arbor with fire shooting out of her eyes. She was still struggling and trying to shout angrily. However, her mouth was gagged, so no matter how hard she tried, it was useless. Watching from the side, Princess Consort Zheng wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief, covering the faint sneer on her lips. Today, Princess Tao was slapped in the face by the Crown Prince and Crown Princess, who knew how she would make a fuss when she returned home. Princess Consort Zheng had to conserve her energy and return to Prince Zheng's estate to deal with that disgusting family. Mo Shikong opened his mouth and closed it again. He cupped his hands at the Crown Prince and said, "In that case, I will take Tower back first. Don't worry, Crown Prince and Crown Princess. I will discipline Tower well." With that, he waved his hand and had someone escort the struggling Sushi Tao away. Prince Mo naturally didn't stop him. He just looked up coldly at their backs. He originally wanted to bring his wife to watch the performance. After such a fuss, his wife would definitely be in a bad mood. On the other side, Steward He, whose mouth was crooked after being slapped, had already been thrown out of the door by Eunuch Chen. As for Mu Royan, she had already slipped away when she saw that the situation wasn't good. What was the point of keeping her? Keeping her for the Crown Prince to punish her? Mu Royan, who had escaped from Despondent Pavilion, finally heaved a long sigh of relief. However, she also felt that her actions were too cowardly. She stomped her feet hatefully and angrily walked towards the Mu residence. Mo Lien turned around and saw that the little fellow had already run to the window and was lying there, watching the performance with relish. Seeing that her mood was not affected at all, Mo Lien was happy. She walked to her side and hugged her, asking, "Why aren't you angry? Are you angry with them?" Arbor curled his lips in disdain. "They're just a bunch of random people. It's not worth getting angry over." Mo Lien was happy to hear that. She lowered her head and rubbed her chin on the top of the little guy's head. "That's right. It's good that Jojo thinks that way." Mr. Jojo looked up at him. "I'm very smart." "Yeah, that's for sure." Mo Lien grinned at her. "Jojo, I'm hungry. Do you have anything good to eat?" Jojo immediately took out a variety of dishes and desserts from the multi-purpose endless food box. "Eat. This Despondent Pavilion has a great reputation. It's made for a good show, but the dishes are really ordinary. It's really not as good as the dishes in her treasure box. This treasure box is really strange. It's filled with all kinds of dishes." She felt that it could almost store all the dishes in the restaurants of the entire continent. The two of them sat by the window, eating while watching the performance on the stage downstairs. This program was really well done. It wasn't just a simple song and dance performance. After the song and dance ended, someone came up to play and sing a song. There were also storytelling and juggling, which were all very popular. There was a woman who performed a butterfly dance, and a local tyrant gave her 100,000 spirit coins as a gift. The Despondent Pavilion was struck with gongs and drums. The list of gifts hanging on the left wall was immediately updated, and this local tyrant ascended to second place. The first local tyrant gave 500,000 spirit coins in one go, and so far, no one has broken through. Chapter 2586. Jojo glanced at the top of the list hanging on the wall, and felt that the name was somewhat familiar. "Lien, look, that fool's surname is also Mo." Mo Lien's mouth twitched. "MN, we know each other." Sir Jojo curiously looked again. "Who is it?" "Mo Kuan, the heir apparent of the Duke of Jianping." Sir Jojo clearly couldn't remember who this person was. Mo Lien smiled and said, "It's that fool that you threw into the pigsty to dance with the sows." With that, Sir Jojo completely remembered. He looked at the top of the list in astonishment and nodded. "So it's him? He's really rich. Does the Duke of Jianping know that he squanders money like water? Emolian said in amusement. Who knows? Maybe he knows. The Duke of Jianping only has this one legitimate son, so he must dote on him a lot. Arbor pursed her lips. Fool. Her words were full of contempt. As they spoke, a group of young masters walked in from outside the despondent pavilion's main hall, accompanied by several beautiful women in fluttering colorful clothes. Speak of the devil. Arbor rolled her eyes and propped up her chin with one hand. Wasn't the leader of this group of young masters the same fool that she had thrown into the pigsty? The heir apparent of the Duke of Jianping, Emokuan, was holding a delicate young lady in one hand and playing with two large Eastern pearls in the other. The moment he entered, he shouted loudly, "Where's Xiao Sui? Let Xiao Sui come and accompany this heir." Lord Heir Apparent, you're here. Steward he, whose face was bruised and swollen from the beating, hurriedly ran forward and bowed to say a bunch of good words. The heir apparent of the Duke of Jianping, Emokuan, pointed at the group of good-for-nothings behind him and shouted, "Serve them good tea and good wine. These are all my sworn brothers." Yes, yes, yes. Steward he immediately beamed with joy, and personally led the Crown Prince of Jianping's group to the private room on the second floor. Because the Crown Prince of Jianping was the #1 nouveau riche on the list of gifts, the despondent pavilion had always reserved a super luxurious private room for him. The vassal prince exuded a domineering aura as he led his group of Silk Pants brothers to the second floor in high spirits. When he reached Emolien's room, he couldn't help but frown when he saw the mess on the floor. What happened? Why are there so many broken pieces of porcelain on the floor? Steward he covered his face and grimaced in pain. He stealthily approached the Crown Prince and said, "Crown Prince, to tell you the truth, there are two great Buddhas here. You can't afford to provoke them." He was almost scared to death just now. He didn't expect that the two people were the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. They were almost killed by the 6th Mississippi. If he had known that the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess were in this private room, how could he have the guts to chase them away? Who is it? Not only did his words not make the Crown Prince of Jianping back down, but it also piqued his curiosity. "It's His Highness the Crown Prince and Her Highness the Crown Princess." "Steward," he said softly. The Crown Prince of Jianping's expression instantly changed. "It's them. Why did this pair of enemies come to the despondent pavilion?" When he thought of the Crown Princess's terrifying methods, the Crown Prince of Jianping felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if he had returned to that day when he was chased by a pig, and his legs turned to jelly, causing him to pee in fright. He immediately felt unwell all over. With a darkened expression, the Crown Prince of Jianping clenched his fists, and was about to calmly flee, who knew that one of his close little brothers behind him, who usually looked rather quick-witted, had a screw loose today. Chapter 2587. That good-for-nothing little brother simply didn't hear Steward. He mentioned the identity of the Crown Prince and Crown Prince Consort. He directly went up and impatiently kicked the door. "What the hell is this? What two great Buddhas can't be provoked? Why don't you come out and let this lord take a look?" The Duke of Jianping's heir wished that he could slap the back of his head. This pig's brain was going to be ruined by him today. "Hurry up and leave quickly." The Duke of Jianping's heir, Emokuan, freaking didn't want to appear so cowardly, but he really was. Right now, just hearing the young Crown Prince Consort's name was enough to make him feel freaking uneasy for no reason. If he could avoid meeting that couple, it would be best if he didn't have to. Eunuch Chen's face was full of anger as he abruptly pulled open the door to the private room. "Are you done yet?" The first thing he saw was Steward He's stupefied face. He went up and kicked Steward He in the stomach. "You're courting death, offending His Highness and Her Highness again and again. Do you really want to die?" Steward He sobbed as he flew out. He felt that he had never been so unlucky in his life. Today's unlucky events all happened today. No, all of them happened tonight. What did he do? He didn't do anything, all right? Eunuch Chen, are you blind? He was just so unlucky to be standing in front of these pampered young masters. After Steward He flew out, the Duke of Jianping's heir, who was hiding behind, revealed his head and met Sir Jojo's pitch-black eyes with a changed expression. "Don't come over. The Duke of Jianping's heir's piercing scream instantly gave all the little brothers a fright. Fuck! This Duke of Jianping's heir actually let out such a scream. Like a little chick whose neck was being strangled before it died. Wasn't this a bit too much? That good-for-nothing little brother, Shi Jinbao, who kicked the door first, was a bit drunk and his eyes were hazy. When he looked over, he just happened to see the little girl's delicate face, and his eyes immediately widened in delight. The young lady inside is really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Shi Jinbao racked his brains to come up with these words, and walked in with a salivating face. Behind him, the Crown Prince of Jianping widened his eyes and opened his mouth. In the end he screamed, "Come back!" The others all felt that the Crown Prince of Jianping's state today was somewhat laughable. Why was she screaming when she was speaking? What was going on? The Crown Prince of Jianping was really scared to death. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be mentally prepared at all. He actually opened the door at once, and was about to face that crazy couple. In his opinion, the couple was no different from demons. He was scared. He admitted that he was terrified. His entire body was secretly trembling. Seeing Shi Jinbao's suicidal behavior, his first instinct was to abandon this pig of a teammate and quickly flee. In fact, the Crown Prince of Jianping had really escaped when the rest of the young brothers saw the cowardly appearance of the Crown Prince of Jianping. Their eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Your Highness. What was going on with the heir? Seeing that the Crown Prince of Jianping didn't even look back as he stomped down the stairs, he couldn't care less about the beauty in his arms and his brothers. As though he was scared silly, he screamed and ran out of the despondent pavilion's main entrance. Everyone was simultaneously petrified. Fuck, was there going to be a red rain today? The devil incarnate, the Crown Prince of Jianping, was actually scared away by a little girl with a stoic face who hadn't even spoken. Chapter 2588. Everyone curiously sized up the little stoic in unison, and at this time, that disaster-seeking Shi Jinbao had already swaggered to the little stoic's front in an S-shaped gait. Before he could reach out to tease her, he saw the man on the side sweep over with a furious expression. He pulled the little stoic girl into his arms and sent Shi Jinbao flying with a punch without the slightest hesitation. Shi Jinbao flew out with a shio sound, and his entire back landed heavily on the door. He very straightforwardly and nimbly bounced out together with the door. He landed heavily on the ground with a bang. Shi Jinbao was sprawled out on the door, sprawled out on all fours. He didn't move for a long time, so he was probably knocked unconscious by Lian's punch. The other profligates roared and slammed tables and smashed stools. Each of them was like an idiot who suddenly went berserk, about to charge into the private room with scowling eyes. Fire explosion talisman. Boom! Inside the Zenith Palace. After a busy day, the Emperor had just finished tidying himself up and planned to go to bed. Your Majesty, ah! Upon hearing that familiar voice, Liusheng's eyes twitched, and he hastily said to Hu Duquan, who was standing on the side, Quickly close the palace door. We are going to bed. Hu Duquan, Your Majesty, aren't you joking? The old Prince of Jianping has already come crying to our door. King Jianping rolled in like a round ball. Rolling and crawling, he knelt down in the bedchamber crying and crying. Your Majesty, if you don't uphold justice for this subject brother this time, this subject brother really won't be able to continue living. Woo-ah. Your Majesty, ah. The Prince of Jianping crawled on the floor, dragging himself across the floor like a rag. He wailed, Your Majesty, ah. The Crown Prince and his wife have no regard for law and discipline, and have no moral principles. They blew up our family's kuaner on the streets. Wah! This subject brother's family is reservedly doing our work for your Majesty, and bowing down to the essence of our divine province. We ask ourselves, we have not let down the heavens and the earth. Ah, Crown Prince and his wife, how can you treat my son like this? The great emperor felt a headache coming on. He calmed himself down and tried to use a calm voice to ask his brother, Jianping, get up and talk. What happened? Your Majesty, the Crown Princess is unruly and arrogant. She blasted my son Kuan Air. until he was covered in cuts and bruises in the dejected pavilion. Not only that, the Shi family, the Long family, and the Gu family's children were all injured by her explosion talismans. The great emperor's eyelids twitched. He really wanted to ask them, why did you go and provoke that stoic face for no reason? Aren't you guys just looking for a beating? Even he was insulted by the stoic face last time. The stoic face didn't even give face to him, the great emperor of the divine prefecture. So how could he give face to you brats? Hee. Although King Jianping was crying and shouting, his two eyes were staring at the great emperor, secretly observing him. This time, when he saw the great emperor's calm expression, and even secretly rolling his eyes, he felt his heart sink. Fuck, what did the great emperor mean by this? Did he feel that this matter was no longer strange? Or was it that his son Emokuan was beaten for nothing this time again? Your Majesty, the crown princess is audacious and presumptuous, and her temperament is extremely vile. This subject brother thinks that she must be properly punished this time, King Jianping said indignantly. After my son Kuan'er returned, he was covered in wounds. Chapter 2589. Most importantly, he was still caught in a nightmare. If it wasn't for Jingmeng spilling the beans today, this subject brother would still be in the dark. Your Majesty, do you know how vicious the crown princess is? My son Emokuan sent so many beauties to the crown prince out of goodwill. That crown princess is jealous by nature. She's lawless. The old king of Jianping roared with a red face and neck. Not only did she throw those beauties into the inn as broom maids, she even locked the kind-hearted Kuan into a pigsty. She led a large group of sows chase after him. My son is still traumatized by it. He has nightmares when he sleeps and sees sows chasing after him when he closes his eyes. Puffed. After Hu Dequan burst out laughing, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He hurriedly shut his mouth and knelt down with a red face. Fuck, the little crown princess is too fierce. The emperor, the old king of Jianping, was still nagging about the crown princess. But the emperor's thoughts had already wandered off. At this moment, he actually thought of his Wuxia. His Wuxia was riding on a snow wolf in high spirits, driving a group of female wolves with her whip as she chased after the battered and exhausted Jianping, who was fleeing in front of her. Jianping, don't you like females? I'll give you a group. Won't you be happy? Jianping, the next time you dare to send those flirtatious bitches to my son, I'll let you have a taste of being fucked by a group of flirtatious bitches. The emperor looked at his younger brother, as if he was looking at a weirdo. The same formula, and the same ingredients. The emperor realized that his daughter-in-law actually had a certain degree of resemblance to his daughter-in-law. Pooh, that wasn't his daughter-in-law. He hadn't admitted it yet. Hu Dequan's mouth twitched. He hurriedly coughed lightly and said, King of Jianping, His Majesty already needs to rest. Don't make a fuss and go back first. His Majesty already knows about this. He'll talk about the crown princess later. What? Talk about the crown princess? Who didn't know how to talk? It would only take a few minutes to talk. Was it enough just to talk? Would talking about it make up for the fright her son had suffered? How preposterous. The great emperor coughed lightly. Jianping, actually, don't you think this scene is a little familiar? Like hell I'm familiar. King Jianping wanted to curse, but he didn't dare to. The great emperor thought about it and decided to forget about it. Perhaps Jianping didn't want to recall such an unbearable scene? He winked at Hu Dequan. Hu Dequan eagerly stepped forward and said, King Jianping, the emperor will definitely have a good talk with the crown princess. Don't worry. The crown princess will definitely not dare to make a move on the crown prince next time. I don't want to scold her. I want to arrest her and punish her. This is simply lawless and lawless. Look at what you've done to the children of the Shi, Long, Gu, and other families. This is too much. Yes. Hu Dequan hurriedly nodded and persuaded the king of Jianping to leave. When the king of Jianping returned home and saw his unconscious son, he became angrier and angrier the more he thought about it. He didn't sleep well the whole night. The next day, he furiously drafted a memorial and impeached the crown princess the moment he went to court. The ministers didn't expect to face such an explosive matter the moment they went to court today. Hence, the entire court was in an uproar. The great emperor also didn't expect Jianping to do such a thing. He immediately glared at him. After the king of Jianping handed the memorial in, he regretted it a little. You. A fierce glint appeared in the little crown princess's eyes. You dare to point at me and nag again? I'll kill you. The end of the night watch. Chapter 2591. The imperial censors all jumped in fright. Fuck, why did this scene seem a little familiar? The emperor sat behind the desk and silently twitched the corners of his eyes. Oh right, Wuxia also pointed at you and threatened you in this way back then. It was a must for the situation to be similar. The old king of Jianping's eyes widened. He had never seen such a vile girl before. Oh no, he seemed to have seen one a few decades ago. But she was not so direct as to say that she would kill him if he continued to nag. She was not so scary you. The king of Jianping was so angry that his chest hurt, and he almost couldn't breathe. You actually dared to be so impudent in front of the emperor. Cut the crap. Your son's incident was merely an accident, and has nothing to do with me. As for the other families you mentioned, Arbor pointed at eunuch Chun who came with him. You tell him. Emma Lien curled her lips in amusement. The little fellow was unhappy to talk again. Eunuch Chun ran forward eagerly, and recounted in full detail how those hedonistic young masters tried to take liberties with the crown princess, and were abused instead. Then he picked up the decree written by the crown prince and said, Your Majesty. The crown prince said that after this incident, Her Highness the crown princess suffered quite a shock, and requires the Sure family, Long family, Gu family and the other families to compensate. The compensation amount and items are all written on this piece of paper. He hopes that your Majesty will stamp it, and have eunuch who announced the decree. The emperor's eyes twitched. Not only did this brat cheat his father, but he also cheated everyone he caught. The emperor waved his hand expressionlessly, and had eunuch who stamp it. Then, he held the decree and scooted to the side to stand. King of Jianping said angrily, Even if there was a reason, the crown princess could have just explained it to them. Why did she have to use an explosion talisman and blow up the entire room of the despondent pavilion? Eunuch Chen said in all seriousness, The crown princess said that the despondent pavilion's management was messy, and they didn't know how to manage it. They carelessly let the male guests offend Her Highness. She will hold the despondent pavilion accountable after this incident. Everyone was speechless. The censors looked at each other and took a step back. They all closed their mouths in tacit agreement and continued to act like quails. Are you kidding me? They could tell that this crown prince consort wasn't someone to be trifled with. You want to step on her head and behave atrociously? It's good enough that you didn't get killed. King Jianping's face darkened as he tried his best to refute. All right, let's just say this is a misunderstanding. What about before? What about that time in the pigsty? The crown princess locked the crown prince in the pigsty and almost scared me out of my wits. You must give me an explanation for this. Arbor took out a piece of paper from his inner world and suddenly threw it at King Jianping's face. Take a good look at it yourself. When King Jianping saw this confession, he was completely dumbfounded. He really didn't expect that this stupid son of his would actually write something like a confession. Just as he was about to gobble up this confession form, Xiao Mu had already snatched the confession form from his hand with a flash. She slapped it in front of the emperor and instantly turned hostile, shouting, Royal Father! I want to hold the Crown Prince of Jianping accountable. I want him to give me and His Highness the Crown Prince an explanation. The emperor's eyelids kept twitching. When he saw this confession clearly, his expression was not much different from King Jianping's. Imperial Father, did you see it? The Crown Prince of Jianping has already confessed. Chapter 2593. The Prince of Jianping forcefully swallowed the impeachment letter. As he swallowed, he mumbled, Your Majesty, just treat this subject brother as a fart, and let him go just like that. Just treat this impeachment letter as if you've never seen it before. All right? The Emperor. All the imperial censors were even more flabbergasted. Did the Prince of Jianping's godly maneuver have to be so heaven-defying? Emolienne secretly twitched her mouth. He still maintained his aloof expression, neither speaking nor expressing any opinion, but he was secretly laughing maniacally in his heart. No way. This was seriously too funny. He was laughing so hard that he was about to suffer internal injuries. This uncle of his looked like a clown no matter how he looked at it. Arbor's little face was cold as he glanced indifferently at the Prince of Jianping. Humph. The Prince of Jianping hurried forward and smiled obsequiously at Arbor as he said, "Crown Princess, look at this confession letter. Why don't I eat it as well?" Hu Duquan lowered his head and hurriedly swallowed his laughter. But from the looks of it, those few old imperial censors beside him were freaking having a harder time holding it in than him. No way, no way. Was this Prince of Jianping really born from the same father as the Emperor? Enough. The Emperor's eyes twitched, and he said coldly with a handsome face, "Let's not talk nonsense anymore. This should just be a misunderstanding. Jianping, you have to go back and discipline Emokuan properly. If he dares to mess around again, I won't let him off so easily." Arbor raised his chin and said with a little pride, "It's not impossible for me to treat this as if it never happened. But you have to compensate." Emolienne. The Emperor. All the imperial censors. I want to pursue the compensation responsibility of the Prince of Jianping's heir. Arbor widened his big black eyes as he looked at the Emperor and said, "Royal Father, this is the compensation list that your daughter-in-law drafted. You can stamp it for Royal Uncle." Everyone. Jianping Wang was about to cry. How did he end up with such a shameless couple? His Kuiner had suffered such a great shock that he was still lying on the bed and had not yet woken up. He did not expect that the little crown princess would not let him go. All right, compensation is fine. If I can spend some compensation to settle this matter privately, it can be considered a blessing in disguise. One had to know that the matter of admitting guilt could be big or small. If Mo Cohen were to really pursue the matter, it would be questionable whether he would be able to keep his life. Prince Jianping took the list of compensation from Eunuch, who with both hands. He didn't understand what the sympathy in Eunuch whose eyes meant. However, when the list of compensation slid to the ground like a long scroll, everyone was stunned. The censors looked at the little crown princess, as if they were looking at a little monster. Prince Jianping held the scroll with even more heartache. He looked at the lines one by one. Every time he looked at a line, his brows would twitch heavily, and his old face would twitch. The crown princess list of compensation, from food and drinks to daily necessities to real estate and fields, were all ordinary items. In addition, the list also included many rare treasures and some refining materials that he had never heard of before. Prince Jianping looked at the crown princess in shock. His face was almost contorted. The emperor expressed sympathy for this little brother of his. And then there was nothing else. "Your Highness, Crown Princess, isn't this a little too much? How is this too much?" Arbor shouted angrily, his little face immediately tensing up. Chapter 2594. He was on the verge of exploding at any moment. "You're saying this because you think that the heir's life is inferior to the compensation list in your hand?" No, that's not what I meant." "Then what do you mean?" "Royal uncle, I really couldn't tell that you were actually so stingy." Everyone. Emolienne didn't know why, but those imperial censors were actually looking at him. What were they looking at him for? Wasn't this the list that his wife personally drafted? Although it was a little long, and there were many items listed in the list, his wife was happy. Anything that could make his wife happy, he would definitely run to the front and support without hesitation. The Prince of Jianping pointed at his own nose and stuttered. I'm stingy? Crown Princess, you actually said that I'm stingy? Why aren't you stingy anymore? Let's just talk about Prince Kong. We're both uncles, but Prince Kong didn't even need us to say anything. The first time we met, he gave a generous gift. Have you heard of Half Moon Cliff's splendid villa? And the 5 prosperous shops on Changle Street, do you know? What do you mean by this? Arbor slapped the list in his hand and glanced at Emolienne at the side. Emolienne couldn't help but laugh. knowing that this little fellow was unhappy to talk again. With the idea of following his wife in everything, the crown prince hurriedly continued. Royal uncle, don't get it wrong. This is the compensation list. It's used to buy Emokuin's life. If this crown prince must pursue the matter, I'll add a confession and a witness. Do you think that you can keep Emokuin's life? Right now, we only want you to compensate. You'd better be clear that you don't have the right to negotiate with us. Everyone, the great emperor massaged his temples. That's enough. Your Majesty. The Prince of Jianping had always been under the emperor's care in the capital all these years. So when had he ever suffered such a loss? The moment he turned his head, his eyes were brimming with tears as he rushed over like a puppy. He hugged the emperor's leg and cried, how can this subject brother have so much money to compensate? This subject brother still has to support the old and young in the residence. The imperial censors looked at the Prince of Jianping, crying like they were watching a show, their brows twitching. Your Majesty, royal brother, I can't live anymore. Brother, you have to save me this time. If you don't save me, my entire family will starve to death on the streets. Shut up. The great emperor had a headache because of his younger brother. In the end, he decided to pay half of the compensation for his troublesome younger brother. Only then did he send King Jianping away. After telling everyone to scram, the great emperor hurriedly ordered Hu Dequan to close the door of the sleeping chamber. No matter who came, he would not see them. What a freaking worry. On the other side, the old king of Jianping was like a ball, fuming as he returned to his residence. She heard a servant report that the heir had finally woken up. He immediately found a way to vent his frustration. He stormed into the crown prince's room and gave his youngest son a good beating without saying a word. That night, the concubine sons and concubine wives in the other court spent the night in fear. They could only hear the miserable cries in the crown prince's court that never stopped. The Prince of Jianping was truly furious this time. If it wasn't for this bastard son coming up with that confession, would he have suffered such a big loss and lost so much blood? Chapter 2595. Although the great emperor had given him half of the compensation, the other half had almost emptied his family's property. He was wronged. As for the other families who were as unlucky as Prince Jianping, the Long family, Gu family and Shi family, they naturally had no answer. Eunuch who went from house to announce the decree. Every family closed their doors and fell into a gloomy and miserable atmosphere. The worst thing was that on the second day, the crown princess's debt collectors came. Early in the morning, they went from house to house and knocked on their doors. The first one was Prince Jianping's door. At that time, the sky was still bright. The old steward rubbed his eyes and ran to open the door. He was almost blinded by the row of people outside. Eunuch Chun held a long list and stood at the door of Prince Jianping's mansion with a fierce face. He said loudly, "Debt collectors." The old steward's eyes twitched. He heard that Prince Jianping's mansion owed a huge debt yesterday. However, he didn't expect that the people from the Eastern Palace were so immoral. They came early in the morning. At this time, the officials were already preparing to go to court. Prince Jianping's mansion was a first-rank mansion where the nobles and prime ministers lived. The left and right residences were either rich or noble. For example, Prince Linchuan's mansion was next to it. On the other side was Prime Minister Gao's mansion. Thus, the officials attending court all saw this scene. The Eastern Palace's debt collectors line up in front of Prince Jianping's mansion like a long dragon. There were at least a few dozen people. There were people pushing carts, people carrying cloth bags, and people pulling carriages. The line stretched to the corner of Prince Kang's mansion. Everyone was dumbfounded. Prince Kang didn't know what was going on, and even ran over to take a look. Seeing this, he almost fell off his horse with laughter. He saw a fat eunuch in his 40s with a white face and no beard. He dragged a list on the ground and said loudly, "Debt collectors." Clang. This time there was even music. A little eunuch at the back held a copper gong. Every time the eunuch in front yelled, he would hit it. Prince Kang laughed heartily, thinking to himself that these two little brats were really mean enough. Prime Minister Gao, who was pretending to be calm, quickly walked over from his house's door with his mouth twitching. The old Prince Jianping rolled out like a ball, so angry that his face was distorted. He pointed at Eunuch Chen and said in a trembling voice, You. I'm here to collect the debt. Eunuch Chen repeated. The little eunuch at the back very responsibly hit him again. The sound was so loud that Prince Jianping's ears. The king of Jianping was so angry that his entire body was trembling. His finger trembled as he pointed at Eunuch Chen. He took a few deep breaths before he finally calmed down. You. Scram. This servant greets Prince Jianping. That won't do. This servant's Her Majesty's Her Majesty's Her Majesty's Majesty's. This is Ostuz's ah. Everyone looked up at the sky speechless. Then they thought to themselves. It seems that the people from the Eastern Palace are not to be trifled with. In the future, we have to be careful when dealing with the Crown Prince. Prince Jianping's fingers trembled for a while. He snatched the list and stuffed it into his mouth. The old steward at the back was stunned. He quickly went up to snatch it while shouting, Prince, don't take things too hard. Eunuch Chen calmly took out a complete list from his sleeve and said mildly, Our Crown Prince Consort said that His Highness has a fetish for eating paper. Chapter 2596. In order to prevent the prince from accidentally eating the list, our family's crown princess gave this servant more than a dozen identical lists, so the prince can eat as much as he wants. When you're full, there's no need for breakfast. Presumably, in the next few years, your residence's expenses, TSK, should be a bit of a problem. Good. Eating paper doesn't consume spirit coins. Prince Kong was about to go crazy with laughter as he watched from the side. When the Prince of Jianping saw this, he hurriedly scrambled forward and hugged one of the stallion's hooves, wailing, Big brother, you have to save me, big brother. Big brother, younger brother can't live anymore. Prince Kong, your sister, I saw a troublesome matter while watching the show. Big brother, the Eastern Palace is too much, big brother. Big brother, you must save younger brother from this disaster. One of Prince Kang's stallion's legs was hugged by this guy, unable to move. He couldn't help but say helplessly, Jianping, get up first. No way, younger brother can't live anymore. Big brother, second brother also helped me with half of it. Why don't you help me a little too? Prince Kong, who the hell did he offend? He was being forced to help early in the morning. I've been tight on cash recently, Prince Kong hurriedly said. Since Her Majesty has already helped you, then you can slowly pay out the other half. How about this? I'll discuss with the Crown Princess and let you pay these compensations in installments. Give you some buffer time. The Prince of Jianping painfully wiped his tears. Big brother, that Crown Princess is a devil who eats people without spitting out the bones. Don't discuss with her, she won't listen to you. Since that's the case, why don't you just give the Crown Princess a deadline of 3 days? Tighten your belt, gather these things in 3 days, and quickly throw them to the Eastern Palace to send her away. Wouldn't that be enough? Otherwise, do you still have to listen to the Eastern Palace's people shouting by imperial decree every day? The Prince of Jianping sobbed. At the side, Prime Minister Gao simply couldn't bear to watch. The corner of his mouth twitched as he glanced at the two-faced Prince Kong. With the Prince of Jianping's IQ, he shouldn't compare with Prince Kang's nagging. It only took 3 minutes for Prince Kong to get the support that the King of Jianping wanted. Prince Kong even gave Prince Jianping advice. Wasn't this a joke? Your Highness, it's almost time. Let's hurry to Luxing sect. Right. Prince Kong patted his younger brother's head and said sympathetically, Jianping, don't worry. Even if he couldn't live on, there was still the arch. Even if that's not enough, I can still go to Linchuan Prince's mansion next door. Official Gao suppressed his laughter and comforted him with a serious expression. Your Highness, don't worry. The great emperor will definitely not let you live. The Prince of Jianping wept to the heavens, wiped his tears, and got out of the carriage. After the court session, the eunuch beside the great emperor asked, Is there anything else you would like to say? The King of Jianping, in front of all the nobles with ranks, threw himself onto the floor and cried out, Your Majesty. Early in the morning, The crown princess of the Eastern Palace arrived at the entrance of my residence with a cart. She kept saying that she was here to collect the debt. Does the subject brother still want to live? The nobles instantly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How many years had it been since they saw the king of Giant Pain, wailing in front of the court? An old imperial censor walked out from the left row and said with a face full of righteousness, reporting to the great emperor, collecting the debt is a matter of course. This old subject thinks that the Eastern Palace's way of doing things is not wrong. Chapter 2597. Everyone looked at Imperial Censor Wang, dumbfounded. This was an old fogey who was notoriously difficult to deal with. He usually disliked people who challenged the laws of the country. Logically speaking, the Eastern Palace's actions were really too much. Who the hell would send people to someone else's door before morning court and beat drums and gongs to collect debts? The corners of the emperor's eyes twitched silently, but no subtle changes could be seen on his expressionless face. However, eunuch who was standing at the side, was too familiar with the emperor. Even the slightest change could be seen by him. Eunuch who knew that the emperor's heart must be crumbling at this moment. 4 or 5 old imperial censors walked out one after another and cupped their hands at the emperor righteously. This subject agrees. Seconded. It's absolutely reasonable and legal for the Eastern Palace to collect debts. Seconded. There's nothing wrong with saying that it's an imperial decree to collect debts. The king of Giant Pain is making a mountain out of a molehill. This is a bit wrong. The corners of Prime Minister Gao's mouth twitched wildly, and he looked at the old imperial censors as if they were monsters. These imperial censors were usually very self-righteous and had high standards. Normally they wouldn't wallow in the mire with others at all. But this time, why were they so firmly on the Eastern Palace's side? It was really strange. Logically speaking, the crown prince had just returned, and the emperor had let him temporarily familiarize himself with the affairs of the Eastern Palace. The crown prince usually stayed in the Eastern Palace and didn't come out. When did he have such a good relationship with these old imperial censors? The king of Giant Pain looked angrily at the old men and cursed in his heart. In his opinion, these old men must have been scared out of their wits by the scene of the young couple in the imperial study yesterday. That was why they were so determined to stand on the Eastern Palace's side today. A bunch of old sons of bitches. They were simply deranged and completely unreasonable. The king of Giant Pain was so angry that he wanted to howl at the emperor again. But the emperor waved his hand at him. All right, go back early today and prepare the compensation. Hand it over to the Eastern Palace as soon as possible, so that the crown princess doesn't send people to ask for it early every morning. Was this his real brother? Absolutely not. After court, the emperor returned to his zenith hall with a sour expression and waved his hand at the air. A man in black appeared beside him like a ghost and bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, what are your orders? Go and find out what that little bastard did last night. In less than an hour, a concise record was placed in front of the great emperor. As expected, the little brat had gone to chat with a few of the censors in the middle of the night. The emperor was simply amused. The little brat was really prepared for a rainy day. He had predicted that the Prince of Giant Pain would make such a move this morning. So he had already gotten the few imperial censors to stand on his side. The great emperor didn't know whether to laugh or be angry, but there was an inexplicable smile on his face. He would definitely be defeated. The next day, the king of Giant Pain's estate collected 1/3 of the compensation and handed it over to the Eastern Palace. They even wrote a guarantee that the remaining goods would be handed over within 7 days. Only then did the crown princess withdraw the team that was ordered to collect the debt and head to the Sher Gu and Long families to collect the debt. Chapter 2598. Compared to the other family's gloom, the Mu family had also sunk into deep worry. Ever since the emperor's strange imperial edict came down, the Mu family head had sent out Mu Xingqian to actively contact the crown princess. However, this was already the 3rd day. For 3 whole days, the crown princess had yet to show her face. Even so, The entire capital was filled with legends about the crown princess. The matter of collecting debts by imperial edict was no longer just circulating in the upper circles. This was already known by the streets and alleys. Everyone's expression changed at the mention of the crown princess in their hearts. The crown princess had already been equated with a little monster. The Mu family was somewhat unable to restrain themselves and held an elder-level high-level meeting early in the morning. The seated elders couldn't help but ask Mu Xingqian, who was sitting in the first seat below the head seat. Xingqian, what's your sister's opinion now? Does she have any requests? Just agree to them first. Let her return to our Mu family first. Mu Xingqian coldly lowered his eyes. I can't see her at all. She probably doesn't want to see anyone from the Mu family at all. How can that be? A tall and thin elder said with a sullen face. If she's really our Mu family's descendant, how can she not wish to return to our family? Unless there's a problem with her bloodline. Mu Xingqian abruptly opened his eyes and coldly looked at that elder. I know best whether she's my sister or not. You guys don't understand this feeling of bloodline fusion at all. Xingqian, don't get angry. Elder Qing was just speaking without thinking. Mu Xingqian restrained the sharpness in his eyes and coldly snorted. At this moment, the door to the side room was pushed open, and Mu Jingfeng and Mu Jingrui walked in first. Behind them were the second, third Mu Jingxing, third, fourth Mu Jingxiao, fifth and sixth Mu Jingxua. The Mu family's 7 sons were all present. These people could be considered to represent the Mu family's core. Why is the atmosphere so gloomy? You're still worrying about the crown princess's matter. Sixth Mu Jingxua giggled. Don't worry, if she's our Mu family's child, she'll return sooner or later. Sooner or later? Today is the 3rd day of the deadline given by the great emperor. Elder Qing snapped. Mu Jingxua shrugged. So what? Let Xingqian make another trip. Maybe the young lady will be willing to come back after her anger subsides. But it's not that I want to scold you. How could you be so blind as to bring back a fake? Mu Jingzhuang said with a grin. This is mainly boss's fault. Look at that concubine in his backyard. What was she doing? If you ask me, I think it's better to divorce this concubine mother, so that she won't be up to no good all day long. Mu Xingqian looked down coldly. Mu Jingfeng coldly waved his hand, interrupting 6 brothers' chatter. He turned to look at Mu Xingqian and said, Go ask her what her conditions are for her to come back. Mu Xingqian couldn't help but sneer. He looked up at his father with ridicule. If the Mu family still has this attitude, I can guarantee that she won't come back. Mu Jingfeng silently looked at his son. There's a reason why I did this. Looking at his son's eyes, Mu Jingfeng already understood that his son had discovered that his original intention was to not bring Mu Qiao, this child, home. I think you must have misunderstood me. I didn't misunderstand. You already knew that concubine sure brought back a fake. Chapter 2599. You'd rather raise a fake than bring my biological sister home. Mu Xingqian clenched his fists tightly. I'm not willing to listen to your explanation right now. Whether you're happy or not, that's the truth. Mu Jingfeng, is what Xingqian said true? A handsome man in his 30s, dressed in white, coldly asked. Jingyuan, don't be agitated. Listen to what eldest has to say. The second brother, Mu Jingxing, hurriedly pulled his third brother back. Mu Jingfeng, you're truly heartless. But since you didn't want to bring the child back then, don't bring her back now. Mu Jingyuan sneered. A third, what are you saying? If we don't bring her back, are we waiting for the emperor to execute our entire family? While everyone was discussing animatedly, Mu Jingfeng coldly shouted. All of you shut up. Xingqian, go to the Eastern Palace and request to see the crown princess again until she sees you. It's fine even if you want me to sleep at the palace's entrance, Mu Xingqian coldly said. Mu Xingqian said coldly. The problem is, even if you sleep there on the street, she won't even look at you when she passes by. Everyone's lips twitched as they turned to Mu Jingfeng in confusion. Eldest's relationship with this daughter was so terrible. Xingqian, I'll go with you, Mu Jingyuan said. She wanted to see that child. She really wanted to see her. I'll go too, Mu Jingxing also said. It's always good to have more people to persuade her. If she's really our Mu family's child, She must have suffered a lot after wandering outside for so many years. Mu Jingfeng coldly swept a glance at his younger brothers. Up to you. As long as you bring her back and pass the bloodline talisman's test, she can naturally enter the Mu family's genealogy. The cup in Mu Jingyuan's hand shattered with a bang. He coldly looked at his eldest brother Mu Jingfeng and said, "Don't worry. Even if you don't want this daughter, I, as her third uncle, will take care of her." Third uncle. Mu Xingchen stood up as well, too lazy to say another word to Mu Jingfeng. "Let's go." The little crown princess listened to Eunuch Chen report how many things were brought back, and how much was left. He flipped through the medical book page by page. At this time, Kai Xiu hurriedly came in and reported, "Crown Princess, the young master of the Mu family has come to see you again." But this time, there seemed to be two other members of the Mu family. Arbor looked indifferent. He flipped a page and asked, "Where's my husband?" The crown prince was called to the extreme hall by His Majesty. "I'm afraid he won't be back before dinner." "Oh," Arbor responded, and put the medical book back into his inner world. He then said to Kai Xiu, "Put it on the carriage, I'm going out." "Where are we going, Crown Princess?" The crown princess's lips curled into a cold smile. "To collect a debt." Kai Xiu couldn't help but be stunned. Over the past few days, collecting debts had become a compulsory course for everyone in the Eastern Palace. Everyone was relishing in the business of collecting debts. Even some palace maids and eunuchs were caught by the people in the accounting room to count things and calculate the accounts. However, the crown princess had never personally left the palace to collect debts. "Where are we going this time?" Kai Xiu didn't say much and instructed the servants to prepare the carriage. She also prepared a small stove for the crown princess to warm her hands and feet. She then put on a thick cloak and followed the crown princess into the carriage. The carriage left Lushing Gate and headed toward Chengel Main Street. After Arbor gave an address, the carriage went straight there. Chapter 2600. The horse carriage stopped at the entrance of Despondent Pavilion. Arbor walked down from the horse carriage and said to the heir behind him, "Send someone to guard the entrance and exit of this place." "Yes." After Tong's figure flashed, he immediately led his men to do as the crown princess instructed. Bang! Manager Chen looked at a certain little crown princess, who kicked the door open with a stupefied expression, and his entire face was slightly distorted. This crown princess was almost becoming his nightmare. Why did he feel that her aura was so terrifying when she returned? "Your Highness, Crown Princess. Why are you here?" Manager He stepped forward with a fawning smile and bowed obsequiously for a while. "What orders does the Crown Princess have for this little one?" "This little one will immediately go and arrange a private room for you." "No need." The little Crown Princess waved her small hand and glanced at him coldly. "Eunuch Chen." Eunuch Chen stepped forward eagerly and slapped a piece of paper on Manager He's face. "Compensate according to the list. If not, ask your head steward who has a say here to come out." Manager He was even more stupefied. He grabbed the list and looked at it, and his hands couldn't help but tremble slightly. "What are you trembling for?" Eunuch Chen couldn't help but shout at him. "Look at you, just this little thing, and you're scared to this extent. What else can he do? So little, you're not someone who can do big things." Manager He cried with a long face. "This eunuch, Crown Princess, why? Why do you want our despondent pavilion to compensate?" He was really wronged. That day, the Crown Princess spent so much in despondent pavilion and ordered so many dishes. If they were to settle the bill, there should be at least 1,000 spirit coins. But in the end, not only did the Crown Princess not pay a single cent, but she also blew up his private room into smithereens. Just the repair costs alone cost him a few thousand spirit coins. Why the hell did he want Despondent Pavilion to compensate now? Was there any justice in this day and age? You're not convinced? Tell those who can make decisions to come out and speak. This was the first thing Mu Xingchen, Mu Jingxing, and Mu Jingyuan saw when they walked in. The little crown princess was sitting on an armchair, looking coldly at the steward in front of her. It was such a cold day, but the manager was sweating profusely. It was obvious that he was terrified. It was obvious how frightened he was by the little crown princess. Mu Xingqian hurried forward and called out, "Jojo." He had not seen the little crown princess come out of the Eastern Palace for several days. Now that he finally saw her, he felt the need to communicate more with her. Mu Jingyuan and Mu Jingxing, on the other hand, stood at the door and sized up the little girl. A hint of excitement flashed in Mu Jingyuan's eyes as he hurriedly stepped forward and said, You're Jojo, sister-in-law's daughter. Where's sister-in-law? Where's your mother?" Arbor faintly glanced at the man and saw that he looked to be in his 30s. He inherited the Mu family's unique handsomeness and was dressed in white, elegant and otherworldly. "Who are you?" Arbor frowned. Ever since she came into contact with the Mu family, no one mentioned her mother, Long Chuyen, except for this man in white, who asked about her mother as soon as they met. The concern in his words did not seem to be fake. But so what? Arbor sneered in her heart. My mother has long turned into a pile of dirt and is no longer in this world. It's completely meaningless for him to express his condolences now. 10 chapters have ended. The author is going to be busy this week. I'll persist for another day tomorrow. Chapter 2601. Your Mu family came at the right time. Arbor said coldly, directly taking the list from eunuch Chen's hands and flinging it in front of Mu Xingqian and the others. The Mu family has a large business, so you should be able to gather the things immediately. In the evening, I'll send someone to collect them. Don't leave out a single thing on the list. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson. After saying that, he jumped down from the armchair and walked towards the door with small steps. Mu Jingxing and Mu Jingyuan finally witnessed the little girl's indifference for the first time. Recalling Mu Xingqian's previous words, they couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Sure enough, this was the Mu family. Even if they were lying on the streets, she wouldn't give them a second glance. Jojo, can we have a good talk? Mu Xingqian glanced bitterly at the little girl and reached out to block her path. Arbor stopped in his tracks, his expression calm as he looked at Mu Xingqian, as if he was looking at an ordinary stranger. The Emperor's decree. That's what I meant. Arbor openly admitted it, a faint trace of coldness flitting through the depths of his eyes. I want your Mu family to be in a terrible fix, and I want you to be unable to live a good life. Mu Jingxing glanced speechlessly at the little girl. Jojo, right? Mu Jingxing coughed lightly and said, I'm your second uncle, Mu Jingxing. This is your third uncle, Mu Jingyuan. Arbor glanced indifferently at the two. He had no intention of greeting them, nor did he express much welcome. Mu Jingyuan stepped forward and said, Jojo, how are you doing on Seacone Planet? How is eldest sister-in-law now? Arbor looked deeply at him. From earlier until now, this person didn't seem to be bothered by the Mu family's imperial decree at all. Instead, he kept asking about her own situation. I am useless. I couldn't find you and your mother all these years, Mu Jingyuan hurriedly said. Third uncle didn't know that you and your mother would actually run to a lower star domain like Seacone Planet. Arbor raised his hand to stop him from speaking. The past is the past. There's no use in saying this now. Yes. Mu Jingyuan hurriedly nodded and said, Jojo, don't come back if you don't want to. If you need anything, just tell third uncle. OL3. Mu Jingxing was even more speechless. Was this old third a fool? If Mu Qiao, this little girl, did not return to the Mu family, would the great emperor let their family off? He was now thinking the same thing as the elders. They all felt that the great emperor had purposely issued this decree. The reason must be that if the crown princess was just a small village girl, who came out of a small mountain village on Seacone Planet, then her status was definitely a little low. If the crown princess had the Mu family as her backing, then it was still acceptable in front of the various aristocratic families and courtiers. After all, by then, the crown princess would also have the background of a noble lady. The great emperor was forcing the Mu clan to admit it. Even if they didn't want to, they had to admit this little girl. How would Mu Jingxing know that the great emperor was forcing them? It was clearly the couple who forced him to issue this nonsensical imperial edict. If the great emperor knew what Mu Jingxing was thinking, he would definitely laugh at him. Mu Jingxing stepped forward and said to Arbor, Jojo, don't be willful anymore. Come back with us. I know that the matter of concubineship bringing back the fake goods previously made you very unhappy, but this matter has been completely resolved now. Chapter 2602. Our Mu family has already officially announced this to the world, Mu Jingxing said with a smile. You don't have to worry about that fake ruining your reputation. You can rest assured about this. Arbor coldly glanced at him. It's not impossible for me to return. Mu Jingxing was slightly delighted when he heard this, and he immediately revealed a smile. Jojo, go ahead. A wooden smile slid across Arbor's lips, as if a cut had been made on a piece of wood. There wasn't a trace of a smile in his eyes, and it was rather frightening to look at. Mu Jingxing's gaze hardened, and his heart subconsciously sank. Have your Mu family's current Madam Lead Eldest Miss, and all the Mu family's womenfolk, starting from your Mu residence, kowtow 3 times and kowtow 9 times. Then kneel and welcome my mother at Lusheng Gate. The Mu estate will open its main doors to welcome me and my mother. Also open the ancestral hall for me. You don't need to know why, just do as I say. This is my request. If you can do it, I'll return. If you can't, your entire family can just wait for death. Don't think that the great emperor is joking. Your heads are all hanging there. If you can't do it, I'll watch you one by one die. Arbor coldly said these words. That voice was like being fished up from the depths of the Yellow Springs, so cold that it sent chills down one's spine. It was so serene that it made one shiver uncontrollably. Mu Jingxing couldn't help but rage in his eyes. You don't talk nonsense with me. I also don't want to listen to your nonsense. Arbor coldly waved his hand and turned to walk out the door. These are my conditions. Do you want pride or your life? Choose for yourself. Mu Jingxing's anger burst forth. At this moment, he truly understood how his eldest brother Mu Jingfeng felt when he didn't want to acknowledge this daughter. If it were him, he also didn't want to acknowledge her. How could there be such an infuriating person? Second uncle. Mu Xingchen grabbed his arm, calming him down. When he looked up again, he saw that the little girl had already drifted out the door and left. Otherwise, don't blame me for sending the Purple Forest Guard to your door to take it. Mu Jingxing was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He glanced at Old Third, who was standing at the side, and could not help but say angrily, You're still laughing. What are you laughing at? If sister-in-law had such a temper back then, she wouldn't have been so angry that she left home, right? Mu Xingchen frowned and said, Third uncle, she chose to leave on her own. The Mu family didn't force her. Heh. Mu Jingyuan shook his head and glanced at Mu Xingchen. You believe what your father says? Don't you know your father's attitude towards Jojo now? How much credibility do you think his words have? Third brother, Mu Jingxing said angrily. No matter what, eldest brother is still eldest brother. He's the head of the Mu family. Pay attention to your words and attitude. Mu Jingyuan sneered and didn't reply. He flicked his sleeves and left as well. Seeing his attitude, Mu Jingxing was so angry that he stomped his feet. He turned to Mu Xingchen and asked, Xingchen, what should we do about this? I think you're serious. Of course I know she's serious. This disobedient and unfilial thing. What she meant was that she wanted your mother to bring your younger sister, as well as the entire family of womenfolk, and go to Lusheng men to pick them up. What en? Mu Jingxing was furious. This concerns our entire Mu family's reputation. I won't agree to this. Mu Xingchen laughed self-mockingly. You won't agree? If you don't agree, then go die. Didn't she say so? Chapter 2603. Mu Jingxing was momentarily at a loss for words as he glared at Mu Xingchen. Xingchen, can't you go and persuade her? Did you see her look at me just now? Did she want to talk to me? Mu Xingchen hung his head dejectedly and walked out dejectedly. Let's go back first. We still have to gather those supplies first. What? Mu Jingxing jumped out at once and picked up the list on the floor, almost smashing it to pieces with a slap. Mu Xingchen snatched it over and held it in his hand. I don't think little sister is just joking. She'll really send someone to collect the supplies at 10 o'clock in the evening. If you don't want the Mu family to lose even more face, then do it. So many things. On what basis? Mu Jingxing originally came with his third brother Mu Jingyuan to build a good relationship with Arbor. But who knew that this fellow would be so infuriating? At this moment, Mu Jingxing was already fuming with anger. His initial plan to get along with the little lass had long been tossed out of the highest heavens. Half an hour later, the two returned to the Mu family, presented the list and recounted the matter. Of course, it infuriated all the elders. The Mu family's fifth son Mu Jingyang was the most impatient. He slammed the table and angrily said, "I'll go slaughter this rebellious little bastard. She actually dares to make such a request? Fifth uncle, if you hurt a hair on my sister's head, I won't let you off," Mu Xingchen angrily said. Mu Jingyang resentfully smacked his lips. "I was just saying. Why are you so anxious with me? You can't even say it." Mu Xingchen was furious. Mu Jingyang pursed his lips and angrily sat back down. Mu Jingfeng silently sat at the head of the table and did not speak for a long time. "Family head, we'll do whatever you say. You definitely can't agree to this matter? On what basis should Madam bring eldest miss to welcome her with 3 kneels and 9 kowtows? Eldest miss is one of the most outstanding talisman masters in our Mu family's younger generation. She can't be humiliated like this." Right. Everyone discussed animatedly. And for a moment, they were all filled with righteous indignation. Mu Xingchen sneered. "Sure, but the result is death." With Mu Xingchen's words, everyone quieted down. He also thought of the great emperor's imperial edict. It was written clearly on the imperial edict that if they did not bring this little ancestor back within 5 days and prove her identity to the world, their entire family would be executed. Everyone took a deep breath and sighed heavily. They all turned their eyes to Patriarch Mu. The Mu family head was silent for a while before he said, "First, prepare all the materials on the list." Everyone felt their teeth ache when they heard this. Elder Qing couldn't help but say angrily, "Patriarch, if we take out all the materials on this list, 1/5 of the entire Mu family's property will be taken out. Just these resources are already 1/5 of the total." Mu Jingyuan couldn't help but mock. Then the entire Mu family, the accumulation of thousands of years of aristocratic families, is too cheap. Elder Qing's face reddened, and he was at a loss for words. This slap to the face was really quite a slap. Mu Jingyuan coldly said, You can't bear to take out just these few materials? Jojo has been wandering outside for so many years, not having enough to eat or wear. Who knows what kind of life the mother and daughter have been living? I think just these are really too little." Chapter 2604. Mu Jingyuan, are you crazy? Fifth Mu Jingyang said angrily. Our Mu family is so big. It's not like you don't know how many cultivation resources are distributed to each disciple in the family. Taking out so much at once. And it's only for a little girl. Who can accept that? Mu Jingyuan sneered. Then why don't you give it to her? You're afraid that the Purple Forest Guard will personally come to take it. What's the use of saying all this nonsense? Mu Jingyang was so angry that smoke was coming out of his nostrils. He pointed at Mu Jingyuan and said, "You," for a long time before resentfully flinging his hand down. "All right, stop arguing," Mu Jingfeng said calmly. "Go and prepare these resources. Put them at the door and wait for her to take them." Can the Mu family afford to give these things back? Everyone felt like vomiting blood in their hearts. Elder Qing was even more unconvinced. I'd like to know why the Mu family is compensating her. Isn't it because of yesterday's incident at Despondent Pavilion? Did those blind brats from the Long family, Gu family, and Shi family offend her, and His Highness the Crown Prince? These families have all given compensation to each of them. As for our Mu family, she said that our Mu family's management was chaotic and offended her, so she insisted that we compensate. The Long family also gave compensation? Mu Jingyang asked in astonishment. Isn't the Long family her maternal family? What kind of maternal family is that? Mu Jingyuan sneered coldly. That family is merely a side branch of the Long family. It has nothing to do with sister-in-law. Moreover, I don't believe that they didn't add fuel to the fire behind the scenes back then. Jingyuan, don't spout nonsense. Mu Jingfeng coldly glanced at Mu Jingyuan. Back then your sister-in-law insisted on leaving. It has nothing to do with us. Why did sister-in-law leave? Don't you know? Mu Jingyuan glared at Mu Jingfeng mockingly. If you didn't mix around with that woman, Jingyuan. Mu Jingfeng glared at him coldly. The latter sneered and stood up to walk out the door. Third brother Yan, third brother. Sixth brother Mu Jingshua smiled awkwardly at everyone. He pointed outside and said, I'll go persuade him. Then he ran out like a wisp of smoke. This third bro is getting more and more outrageous. Mu Jingyang snorted. Mu Jingfeng's gaze was calm, as though he was not affected by this matter at all. He calmly said, Fourth, I'll leave the matter of gathering and preparing the supplies to you. Make sure it's done before nightfall. Yes, big brother. Mu Jingxiao nodded, and did not express any opinion. In any case, he just had to follow his boss's orders. As for the rest, it was not something that a bastard like him could control. Big brother, that girl Mu Qiao said to have sister-in-law bring eldest niece along to kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times? Mu Jingxing looked awkwardly at his eldest brother Mu Jingfeng. He always felt that this matter had evolved to become the first branch's family affair. Don't bother about it. How can we not care? Mu Jingyang panicked again. Big brother, it's not that I want to say this, but that daughter of yours who was left outside is very formidable. It doesn't feel like she's lying. If we don't make sister-in-law and eldest niece kneel, I feel like she won't let this matter rest. Mu Jingfeng coldly said, Is she worthy? After all, she's a crown princess now. Worthy, she can be considered worthy. Chapter 2605. Mu Jingfeng waved his hand, looking a little tired as he dismissed the crowd. Elder Qing and the rest still wanted to persuade him, but when they saw his cold gaze, they could not help but sigh and shrink their necks as they walked out. Xingchen, you stay. Mu Xingchen sat in front of him, and did not speak for a long time. Mu Jingfeng looked at him and asked, Xingchen, do you think she's doing the right thing? Although your mother isn't your biological mother, she painstakingly raised you all these years. When did she not do her best to take care of you when you were sick and bedridden? There's also your sister Xianer. She respects you the most. Mu Xingchen remained silent. I know you've always been aloof, but you're not someone who can't tell good from bad. You must be able to feel that your mother and sister treat you with sincerity, don't you? Father, what are you trying to say? Go and persuade your sister. I'm willing to accept her home. Mu Jingfeng pinched the space between his brows, looking exhausted. But there's no need for 3 kowtows and 9 kowtows. She's so young. How can she receive so many bows from the Mu family's elders? There are more than 100 womenfolk in the Mu family. Do you want her grandmother to kneel as well? Mu Xingchen remained silent. Father, if the Mu family didn't have such an attitude from the start, things wouldn't have come to this. If the Mu family didn't bring that impostor home from the start, she wouldn't have been completely enraged. Father, don't you think it's hard for you to absolve yourself of the blame now that things have come to this? Mu Jingfeng's eyes finally moved. He looked up and coldly gazed at his son. Xingchen, you were born and raised in this family. Your achievements today are inseparable from the Mu family's nurturing. You should also know that if this family is really suppressed by that rebellious daughter, the entire family and thousands of family members will be implicated. Mu Xingchen looked at him coldly, not saying a word or expressing any opinion. Father, do you think my words will be of any use? How is it useless? You're siblings and are connected by blood. You said yourself that you'll feel the resonance of your bloodline when you walk to her side. Mu Xingchen sneered mockingly. So what? In her eyes, I might not even be as good as a dog on the street. Xingchen. Mu Jingfeng slammed the table in anger. Why do you have to belittle yourself like this? What I said is the truth. Mu Xingchen only felt extremely bitter in his heart. You didn't see her expression when she said those words to us in Despondent Pavilion. She said that it's up to us to choose whether we want pride or our lives. She'll be waiting to see us die one by one. Unfilial daughter. Mu Jingfeng finally showed his anger. He slammed the table heavily, and the teacup on the table jumped up with a kick sound. Mu Xingchen looked coldly at his father, and did not continue speaking. From a moment ago until now, he was like a wandering soul, wandering the world. Was he sad? She was heartbroken, all right? His heart was so uncomfortable that it felt like someone was using a blunt knife to cut it bit by bit. He had the illusion that he wanted to cry, but he couldn't. She was his only sister in the world, who was related to him by blood. Yet, she hated their family to the bone. Mu Xingchen walked out of the door in a daze. He did not know when, but his extremely cold tears had fallen. Chapter 2606. After strolling around Changel Boulevard, Xiaomu bought a few bits and pieces of snacks. When she returned to Lushing Gate, she saw the crown prince galloping out on a fast horse. The little fellow hastily poked her head out of the carriage and waved at him. Lian. Emo Lian had already seen her carriage. She hastily dismounted and quickly jumped into the carriage. Where did you run off to? Prince Emo pulled her over with a displeased expression and rubbed her head. His father had caught him and given him a lecture. When he finally managed to break free and return to the Eastern Palace, he discovered that his wife had disappeared. The crown prince immediately thought of the rainbow flowers that filled the entire building in spring. He felt that the little girl must have gone to Jade Tripod Market to take a look out of curiosity. After all, the little girl did show a trace of interest that night, didn't she? Where did she go? Jojo. To collect debts. Arbor took out a list from his sleeve and flung it out for the crown prince to see. Look, this is the compensation I asked the Mu family for. I had them prepare it before evening. Emolian's mouth twitched as she flipped through the list. There were all sorts of medicinal pills and spirit tools on this list. Sir Jojo had even extorted a batch of talismans from them. Actually, she didn't lack any of these things. What she wanted was to make the Mu family vomit blood. When we bring these things back, reward them to Huifeng and Tong. They've been working quite hard recently. Emolian couldn't help but laugh. She nodded and said, okay. Whatever Jojo said was good. If these resources were rewarded to Huifeng and the others, they would probably be happy for several days. After all, just the medicinal pills for cultivation alone would be enough for them to eat for a while. We have a lot of people to take care of. If we distribute the Mu family's compensation, there won't be much left in everyone's hands. Arbor said in all seriousness, we still have to earn more compensation. Emolian almost died from laughter. She nodded when she heard that. MHM, Jojo is so smart. A certain person nodded in agreement. She also felt that her trick of getting something for nothing was pretty good. Jojo. Emolian reached out and hugged her. Since we're out, why don't we go out for dinner? All right. I heard that there's a famous Kaidai veranda in your sovereign capital. Do you want to try it? All right. Emolian squeezed her little hand and had the coachman turn around, heading towards Kaidai Pavilion. When it came to eating, Arbor was quite happy. Eating is a must in life. She just didn't know if the famous Kaidai veranda, which was the talk of the town in the imperial capital, was as delicious as its name implied. When the two of them arrived at the entrance of Kaidai Pavilion, they saw a long queue in front of the shop. The little fellow got out of the car curiously and looked around. Then, he took Emolian's hand and walked towards the door. There was a small service counter at the entrance of Kaidai Pavilion. Two smiling women stood in front of it. When they saw the guests, they bowed and said, "How many guests are there?" 2. You'll have to wait for a while. Take your number plate and have a seat over there. There are some refreshments there for everyone. The little girl looked curious. Is your business that good? Could all of these people be fake? It wasn't even time for lunch yet. Why was there such a long queue at the entrance? Looking at the other restaurants, none of them had such good business. This was simply too rare. The receptionist smiled and said, "Our Kaidai veranda is very different from other restaurants." Chapter 2607. Our main line this winter is growing vegetables and beautifying dishes. These dishes can't be found in restaurants or tea houses outside. Jojo replied with an, "Oh," and immediately felt that this restaurant was a bit magical. They actually placed many tables and chairs outside the door for the people in line to rest and eat some fruits and snacks. There were indeed quite a number of people gathered here. Do we have to wait? Emolian pulled her to her side and asked. The little fellow's eyes darted around before she shook her head and said, "No. No matter how good the dishes were, they weren't worth her, and the crown prince waiting here for half a day after waiting in such a long line." She immediately felt that her interest was waning. The crown prince nodded. "Then let's go eat somewhere else." Arbor replied with an and turned around with Prince Emo leading her. When the two were walking towards the carriage, they saw a few familiar faces walking over. Oh, did the Mu family go on a trip together today? They had just sent away a group when another group came over. Of course, it looked like the Mu family was also heading to Kaidai restaurant to eat, so they probably bumped into each other by coincidence. Mu Rochuan was also stunned when she saw Arbor. Before she could speak, Mu Rian beside her jumped up like a hedgehog. "Why are you here?" Mu Rian was too familiar with this stoic-faced young lady, so familiar that she couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. She still remembered the humiliation she suffered on the Langfang boat. Just thinking about it made her angry. A sinister glint surfaced in Mu Rian's eyes as she stared fixedly at Arbor's face. If it weren't for her eldest sister stopping her with a cold expression, Mu Rian would have long rushed up with the servants to beat up that stoic-faced young lady. She still remembered that her eldest brother was defeated by this stoic-faced young lady. Her eldest brother was even slapped by this damned stoic-faced young lady. Who did she think she was to dare lay a hand on the Mu family? Previously at Langfang, she couldn't kill her alone. Now that they were in the imperial capital, she had the Mu family as her powerful backing. Wasn't it a simple matter to kill this little bitch with a single sentence? "Eldest miss, second miss, why did you stop here and not leave?" A smiling young man ran over. He seemed to be a disciple of the Mu clan. His attitude towards the two of them was very respectful. "Mu, he hit her." Mu Royan raised her chin and scolded. The youth named Mu he was stunned. He turned to look at the stoic face, but before he could do anything, he was stopped by Mu Rochuan's indifferent shout. "Stop it." Mu Roxian glared at Mu Royan. "Don't go around causing trouble. Don't forget what we are here for." Mu Royan's arrogance instantly soared. "Yes, I'm accompanying Big Sister to wait for the invitation today." As he spoke, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he looked towards Arbor with a mocking sneer. "My elder sister is going to become a student of the royal school this spring." Mu Royan didn't deliberately lower her voice, so everyone around them heard it. At this moment, they were in an uproar and looked at the sisters with envy. Mu Royan felt honored, as if the person who received the invitation to the imperial school was her. Mu Royan. What imperial school? Darling Qiao expressed that she had never heard of it. Emolian lowered her head and saw the little fellow blinking her eyes with a curious expression. Her heart softened as she raised her hand to pull her to her side and said, "Don't mind it." Arbor was still curious. "Is it a very powerful school?" Chapter 2608. More impressive than our top-notch academy? If any of the 6 prefectures' academies were here, they would definitely be unable to resist ridiculing her. "How is your lousy top-notch academy impressive?" Emolien's lips twitched as she nodded and said, "Your top-notch academy is still impressive." Darling Qiao instantly said matter-of-factly, "As expected, our principal Yun Fei is still very impressive." Emolien. On the side, Mu Royan's face contorted slightly, and she couldn't resist snickering. "We've never even heard of your so-called top-notch academy. What kind of place do you think the Royal Academy is?" "It's the most famous academy in the 3 provinces. It was founded by the combined funds of our Divine Province, Song Province, and Ming Province. A large group of the 3 provinces' top-notch teachers are gathered inside. Also, there are countless geniuses inside. All of them are the 3 provinces' most famous geniuses." Xiao Mian expressionlessly looked at the boastful Mu Royan with a stoic face. "You're inside? Those geniuses are either talisman experts or top-notch cultivators. Then there are weapon and pill refinement masters. An academy where all kinds of elites gather." Mu Royan's face contorted slightly. "Of course I'm not inside. I freaking thought you were inside. You were blushing like a fool. But it turns out you're not inside." The little stoic speechlessly glanced at her and shooed her away like a fly. Then why are you blabbering nonsense with me? Everyone. Mu Yin shrieked in exasperation. My elder sister is inside. You are you, and your elder sister is your elder sister. Arbor grumpily said. Get out of the way, a good dog doesn't block the way. Mu Yin was about to go crazy from anger. She shrieked and ordered Mu He. Hit her. If she dies or maims, it's on me. Mu He hesitated. Just as he was hesitating, the little girl charged over like a primitive leopard. Fuck. Yen didn't even have time to hug her. The little girl shot in front of Mu Yin like a cannonball. She held a washboard horizontally in her hand and slapped it heavily at Mu Yin's head. Slap. Mu Yin shockingly discovered that she was sent flying. Her entire body was like a piece of rotten tofu as she was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. 2 pairs of black boots with golden threads suddenly appeared in her vision. Only then did Mu Yin spit out a mouthful of blood. Her face was covered in blood as she raised her head in a sorry state. With one look, her heart was completely shattered. Wasn't this her beloved 5th young master? Why did the 5th young master suddenly appear here and see her in such a disgraceful state? Mu Yin shrieked. She frantically wiped away the blood from her nose as she struggled to stand up. 5th young master, don't look at my face, don't look. Just as Mu Yin was desperately trying to cover her face, the Qin estate's 5th young master indifferently walked past her. Sorry, 5th young master didn't even look at your face. You're the only one who's talking nonsense. Mu Rochuan was so angry that her chest was about to explode. She must have been out of her mind to bring this stupid second sister to Kaidai Pavilion for a meal. She was about to faint from anger. It was one thing for her second sister to make a fool of herself, but she had also brought shame to her grandmother. She simply didn't know what to say. She couldn't win, yet she was still blindly talking nonsense. It was better for people to know their own limits. Otherwise, they would only be asking for humiliation. Chapter 2609. Mu Rochuan took a deep breath. Just as she was about to speak, she heard a low and elegant chuckle. I say, little Jojo really hasn't changed at all. Still so violent. Arbor expressionlessly looked at the grinning man, who ran to him with a flourish of his sleeves. Why did someone from the Qin estate run over? How annoying. Little Jojo silently turned her head away from eldest Qin and pattered to the crown prince's side. Prince Imo restrained the smile on his lips and said to her in all seriousness, Jojo, let's go eat at the festive restaurant next door. Okay. The little fellow nodded and turned to ask Mu Rochuan. This is your Mu clan's property? Mu Rochuan didn't expect the stoic-faced girl to speak to her. After a momentary daze, she nodded. Yes. Oh. Little Jojo didn't say anything else. She turned around and saw eldest young Sir Qin approach her with a grin. Jojo, you're truly heartless. Why are you ignoring me? I don't know you at all. Yin irritably pulled the little fellow to the other side and blocked eldest Qin's face with her arm. Scram. Your Highness the Crown Prince, it's not right of you to say that. Eldest young Sir Qin bit his lip pitifully. In any case, Jojo and I are old friends who came from Seekong planet together. Of course, I have to come and greet an old friend in a foreign land. Don't you think so, Jojo? Standing behind eldest young Sir Qin, the 5th young Sir revealed a trace of astonishment and asked coldly, Eldest brother, you know her? Eldest young Sir Qin detected a trace of confusion in the 5th young Sir's words, so he turned to ask him, What, you also know the little stoic? 5th young Sir Qin coldly swept the little stoic a glance and said aloofly, I don't know her. Sir Jojo was immediately a bit angry. Don't know your sister. He didn't expect that only Sir Jojo would disdain someone. But now, this youth would disdain her? This young man had a cold face and a serious expression. Just looking at him was extremely annoying. Jojo ignored him and turned to look at Yin. Let's go. The Qin family is a bunch of ingrates. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have saved that 5th young master. What an ungrateful fellow. Mr. Jojo waved his hand angrily. He hooked his arm around Yin's finger and walked towards the festive restaurant. She wasn't that curious about Kaidai brothel. Wasn't it the same to eat at the festive restaurant next door? Jojo, don't run. Eldest young Sir Qin hastily blocked their path with a flash and said to the Crown Prince merrily, Your Highness Crown Prince, this Qin has reserved a private room at Kaidai Pavilion. Since the two of you are so fated to meet, how about this Qin host a welcoming dinner for the two of you? The little fellow's expressionless face was taut. She originally wanted to sternly refuse. The Crown Prince raised his hand to pat her head and nodded reluctantly. All right. If it weren't for the fact that the little fellow was truly curious about this Kaidai brothel, he wouldn't have eaten with eldest young Sir Qin. Although Sir Jojo didn't say anything, his mood improved. Eldest young Sir Qin's gaze flickered, and he said with a smile, This way please. The fifth young Sir didn't say anything and silently followed behind the trio towards Kaidai brothel. He helped the disheveled Mu Ro Yen up with great difficulty. When she saw Arbor's figure walking in, she shrieked. Who allowed her to go in? Stop her. This lunatic dared to enter their Kaidai brothel after beating her up like this. Chapter 26:10. Ro Yen. Mu Roxuan irritably shouted at her. Mu Ro Yen turned to look at her in astonishment. Return first. Mu Roxuan's gaze chilled, and she coldly instructed the two maidservants behind her. You two must escort second Miss back properly. Yes, eldest Mississippi. Mu Ro Yen was still unconvinced, and she stiffened her neck and shouted at Mu Roxuan. Eldest sister, I was humiliated by that woman on the streets and suffered such serious injuries. Yet you're actually making me return? No way. Shut up. Mu Roxuan was simply about to be angered to death by this idiot. Didn't she hear that eldest young Sir Qin respectfully address him as His Highness the Crown Prince just now? How long did this Mu Ro Yen want to kick up a fuss for? Couldn't she use her brain a bit when she went out to do things? Mu Roxuan didn't want to waste any more words with her, and directly waved her hand, gesturing for the two strong maidservants to pull Mu Ro Yen back to the Mu estate. Afterwards, Mu Roxuan looked up at her Kaidai veranda's gold-lettered door lintel and walked inside with light steps. Arbor ordered a table full of dishes, and after ordering, he saw the fifth young Sir looking at him coldly. You can eat so much? How did this woman develop such a temperament? When she treated his illness back then, she swindled and cheated as much as she could. She was simply a shameless person. You're footing the bill? I'll pay. Eldest young Sir Qin hastily said with a smile and glanced at his younger brother. Fifth brother, do you know each other? If he still couldn't tell that these two people knew each other now, then he really was eldest young Sir Qin for nothing. The atmosphere between these two people wasn't too harmonious from the moment they met. He didn't know when his fifth brother got acquainted with the little stoic. It was truly quite rare to find someone who could gain the little stoic's approval. However, there were truly quite a few people who the little stoic disliked. It seemed like he was one of them. Eldest young Sir Qin rubbed his nose. Fifth young Sir Qin humped coldly and didn't say anything, shifting his gaze outside the window. Knock knock. Someone lightly knocked on the door. Eldest young Sir Qin indicated for his personal pageboy to open the door. Mu Roxuan's gentle and dignified face was revealed when the door opened. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Crown Princess. Eldest young master, fifth young master. I hope I'm not disturbing you? It's quite a bother, Arbor replied faintly. Everyone was speechless. Fifth young Sir Qin turned his head to glare at the little stoic in thought. Would it kill you to speak properly? He didn't know what capabilities this little stoic possessed to make his eldest brother regard her so highly. The Crown Princess. Who would have thought that the junior physician he met at Langfang would be the one who caused everyone's expressions to change at the mention of the Crown Princess in the imperial capital? Mu Roxuan didn't mind the awkwardness as she walked in and said with a smile, The Crown Prince, the Crown Princess, and the two young masters of the Qin estate have come to our Kaidai veranda, so I naturally have to be the host. This table is on me. Mu Roxuan sat down with a smile and said to the steward of Kaidai Pavilion behind her, Bring the best wine and serve all the vegetables. Yes. The steward hastily bowed with a smile and retreated out of the door with his men. He was naturally a shrewd person and knew that the people in this private room were all wealthy and respectable people. So he quickly dispatched 2 people to guard the door, to prevent anyone from offending the honored guests again. Mu Rochuan looked at the Crown Prince with a smile. Rochuan will toast to the Crown Prince first as a sign of respect. Your Highness, the Crown Prince's distinguished status has condescended to our Kaidai Pavilion. Your presence brings light to our humble dwelling. 10 o'clock. Tomorrow 6 o'clock. Slow neck, slow waist. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.